This is the Vision 79 podcast, where my friend Sander and myself, Mason, discuss recent developments in our business and personal growth. The name Vision 79 comes from our respective racing numbers. Sander's is 40, mine is 39, and we have similar ambition to progress in business and personal growth. Many successful people have started small, just like us, but very few of them have documented their early years. They often say they wish they had, and given we believe in learning lessons from others, we intend to be the first to document our journey from start to finish. This is simply a documentary of our lives, and as such, we do not monetize these videos, so enjoy the ad-free content. Today, we'll discuss whether or not it's the right time to start a business, the mental and logistical hurdles of doing so, whether consistency or experimentation are better strategies when doing it, and much more. But first, we start each episode with an update on where we're at in our business and personal lives. So what do you have for business this week?
Business this week was good. It was good. It was a productive week.
Awesome.
Scaling up. I got my ad accounts in order, all that stuff, and I'm scaling them up accordingly, as I can. So, still not much spend right now,
Cool.
around 175 on my main account.
That's up from last week.
Yeah. So just scaled it up a little bit as the return on ad spend allowed it to be. So I tested long form content, like a very in-depth ad that I made.
Yeah.
And I tested 3 versions of that ad. I tested the base version. I tested a version where I did custom text and styling for the intro. And then I did a version that had text all throughout. Gotcha. I did those 3. Out of those 3, the no text version was the best.
Really?
Yeah. And that's on par with a previous test I did where I did text versus no text.
Gotcha.
So wasn't terribly surprised, but the hook rate is better for, actually I have it written down. The hook rate is better for the text versions. So it hooks people in better when it has text.
And then get rid of the text after the hook?
Yeah, the hard part is the other metrics. So the hold was better for no text. So people watch it for longer if there's not continuous text on the screen.
Got it.
But the cost to reach 1,000 people is higher when it has text. The cost per click is higher because of that.
Got it.
It takes more effort to reach people when it has text on the screen, and the conversion rate is lower for when it has text on the screen. The click-through rate. So that's how many people actually click on the ad.
Got it.
So and I saw that consistently between both of my tests. The no text version of any ad always performed better in every single metric that actually gives you sales, aside from maybe hook rate.
Right.
But then even with one that just had text on the hook, I saw a decline in all of the other metrics.
Interesting.
So I don't know if it's just I think what it is if you have a good verbal hook,
right,
people get locked in. Because you essentially have kind of 2 ways to lock people in, and then there's 2 in each of those subcategories. You have audio, what people hear, and then you have visual, what people see. And then in the audio category, you have what the person is actually saying, as well as maybe sounds or music that might combine with that, right? So those are the 2. And then with visual, you have what people are seeing on the screen and then what people could potentially read on the screen.
Right.
And so I think when I have, and I'll get into this a little bit later, when I have a mix of reading, seeing, and then also talking, hearing, and music, with all of those combined, it's just an overload. And people get hooked in and they're like, what's this? But then they start panning to different things and trying to figure out, okay, do I read now? Do I listen now? Do I see now? Oh, what's this? Oh, what did I miss there? And then they get distracted and confused and they just scroll. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing with that. And that comes in line with another test I ran later this week. Gotcha. As well as I was listening to Hermosi, and he was talking about how you have to dumb down your advertisements to a 3rd or 5th grade reading level.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I had been trying to do passively, but didn't know of a tool that directly allowed me to do that. And then I heard him in a podcast mention this tool that he uses called Hemingway. And Hemingway Editor, essentially you put in a block of text and it'll give you a grade level readout. So it'll
this
tell
is
you what,
fourth grade. This is fifth grade.
yeah, it'll
Got
tell you like for this block of tests, this is made for an 8th grade reading level.
Gotcha.
And then it will highlight sentences that are like medium hard to read and then hard to read, and it'll highlight grammar errors. And you can go back and either edit it yourself, or you can have their AI edit it, and then it brings down the reading level. And then that way you can go back and forth and get it to a point where it's between 3 and 5.
Did you know that the average American reads at below a third grade reading level?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
That's
crazy.
primarily why you have to whittle it down so much.
Right. He's got another good quote, which is, "You're not overwhelming them with value. You're just overwhelming them,"
Mhm.
and that could be part of it too.
Yeah, that's kind of where my like visuals on the screen, reading on the screen, music in the background, and audio to hear. That's kind of where that theory comes from. Is just it's just overwhelming. And he also talks about Hermosi talks about this with the grade level reading stuff. He's like, if you're not at a 3rd or 5th grade reading level, if your ad is like at a grade 7 or whatever, then your audience might catch a word that they don't know, and then they try to figure out what that word means, and then they lose track of what you're saying after that, and then they get distracted, they don't understand anything, and then they scroll.
Right.
So it's got to be like real cut, crystal clear.
Right.
Essentially, he was like in this. It was like a Zoom meeting with other business owners that he was talking about this stuff in, and essentially he was like, your advertising strategy is dumb it down to a 3rd grade or 5th grade reading level.
Yeah.
And then go sad face, happy face. Sad face, happy face. It's like you transition and that's it. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to go back through my ads, see how I'm working those premises, go back and put old ad copies into Hemingway to see how the grade level, reading level pans out. And so that I worked on after this test, and I ran one more test that I didn't do this for because they were run in unison.
Gotcha.
But overall, the no text was better. But the long form content, because it was so hard for it to reach customers, did not spend very well, and it didn't convert. So it was very costly for me to get it out to people, and it didn't actually convert to sales.
Got it.
The short form content, I tested some. This was before I did all the Hemingway stuff and all that.
Right.
I did some short form content with my own audio voiceover that one was converted. And what I found is that it works really well for tonality, but I can't enunciate my words well enough to speak quickly and have the AI convert it in a manner that sounds realistic. Because what happens is I will like, as I talk more quickly, I'll slur words a little bit, and AI will pick that up and it'll try to slur the words, and then it just sounds like shit. Or like I'll say something like toddler, and it'll read that as podler. Because like I'm not like, you know what I mean?
If you say things at like 1.5 speed, can you audio dub it and then speed it up to 1 speed?
So you can do that. The hard part is that I looked into audio programs that will speed up your audio without changing the pitch. Because like usually when you speed up an audio clip, it makes the pitch higher.
Right. I think CapCut has that feature.
It does, but it doesn't work well enough to where it still sounds realistic.
But okay, so like, got it. What I'm thinking is, instead of recording regularly and then speeding it up, talk way slower and then speed it up to 1 speed.
I haven't tried it. It's possible. Anything's possible. I don't know. What I did find though is that if I just sit with the current AI models without voicing over, and I just iterate, and I just spend like 15 minutes iterating, I'll eventually get one that works well.
Okay.
And so that's what I've been doing instead of trying to do my own recording and then uploading it, converting it, and all that stuff. Because that whole process takes about 20 minutes. And if I can just iterate, 30 times in a matter of 10 minutes, then I save half the time and I get my end result, and it's quick enough to where I'm happy with it.
Could you also splice together different audio clips? Like if you've got 2 iterations, one gets the first half right, one gets the second half right, you just cut them up.
Yeah, I've done that before. I like to try and at least give 10 or 15 minutes to just continuously iterate.
Right.
Because then if I split 2 up in CapCut, I can just split them up in my one ad that I'm making, but that's challenging because then every single time I make a new ad where I want to use the same script, I have to cut and splice that again. And so what I end up doing is I put it just in a CapCut video. I put the two audios together, I splice them together, then I download that, remove the video, and then re-upload the audio. And so that process takes, 5-7 minutes. So, through that, it's like I can spend 5 minutes getting two halves that work well together and do that, or I can just spend 10 minutes clicking and get one that's solid chunk, and I could just go with it.
Got it.
So I usually it just depends. If I'm at like 10 minutes, I'm still not getting anything that I like, I download as I go ones that are like decent clips, and I'll splice.
Gotcha.
But it just depends on what I kind of how well the AI is taking the script that I give it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, good thoughts. I that stuff I played around with, and
Yeah.
it just depends. But the ones I did the custom voiceover myself for were a little bit slower paced, and they didn't perform quite as well as I wanted them to. And then that's when I started looking into the grade level stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna go back to the drawing board on some of these scripts. I'm gonna take the better one out of like some of the better ones out of the ones that I've done previously.
So these are a slow-paced short form.
Yeah, that's what I tested here because
Okay.
the reason it was slow paced was because I couldn't talk quickly enough to get my, custom audio to work. So I went back and looked at the scripts I'd done previously, looked at the script of the winning ad I have, and I kind of created a compilation script and then did 3 iterations of that. Just a short script that kind of hit the main heavy hitters, which is what I found generally the scripts that do better are the ones that are simplistic, cut to the chase, and are just kind of show the product and display what it does.
Right.
And so I took those, I compiled it in, put it through Hemingway to create like a third grade reading level version of it,
Right.
and then iterated that with like a few different hooks, and slightly different messaging, like here and there, just depending. I had some hooks that worked. I think for one of them, I ran the same hook and then slightly different messaging, and then the other one, I ran the same messaging and slightly different hooks.
Got it.
I ran a bunch of tests this week, and so then I took those. These ones were same core messaging, slightly different. Well, similar core messaging with similar hooks, but just like slight variations. I was just kind of
Okay.
testing the waters at this point. And I did because for these I wanted to do. I found the text thing, text versus no text. Now I wanted to do music versus no music in the background.
Okay.
Because I started thinking about that overwhelming principle and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, let's do music.
So is this with text, no music, or is this no
This
text,
is
no music?
no text because I found that to perform better overall, but with
Got it.
music or no music.
Okay, so no text works better overall, but music was a consistent variable there, right?
Music I added here and there. I never really tracked music
Okay, got it.
because
now
I
you're
didn't
testing
think
music.
anything of it up until this point.
Got it. Now
I
you're
thought it
testing.
can make the ad better, or maybe sometimes you don't need it. I never thought about twice about it.
Got it. So now it's music, but you're no text. So music is the only changing variable.
Yeah, music versus no music
Got it.
with no text on all of them.
Got it.
And I ran those 3 ads, each with music, and then just 3 same ads, everything with no music. The no music outspent and outperformed the music by a long shot,
Interesting.
which was also interesting. So now I'm at the point where it's just voiceover,
Mhm.
just visuals, no text, and no music.
Mm-hmm.
Which was kind of an interesting find. I didn't really expect that. I thought music would kind of keep people engaged a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think it's just overwhelming. I think it really depends. I haven't tested this yet, but my theory is that if you have super, super simple visuals, then music with a voiceover works well. If you're trying to cram a bunch of information into an ad with a bunch of different clips showing different features and benefits, then adding music onto a voiceover that's already relatively fast paced, even if it's a simple reading level,
Right.
adding music on top of that just distracts from the meaning and the messaging.
Right.
That's my theory. I haven't proven that yet. But well, yeah, I haven't quite proven that yet. Next, I tested. Next I tested a reflection of my winning ad that's almost a direct reflection. I took that script and all I did was simplify it down to the grade level of, I think I simplified it down to 4.
Got it.
I think 3 or 4. And I took that and I did 3 ads with it. One that was a direct reflection of my winning ad, but just instead of, because the winning ad has just like a gramophone playing, and instead of that, I did my own footage, but it was a direct reflection of that. But it was, same style ad, same everything. Essentially, it was like a different background and different looking gramophone, slightly different color,
Got it.
but same style ad,
Right.
with the script just down to the grade level. Then I took that similar premise, that same script, and I did a hook with a couple kids that have worked really well in the past for me, just that hook clip. And then I did like an ASMR assembling style video, unboxing video.
Got it.
With some clips of it playing at the end. And then I did a version that was just unboxing and ASMR style with the script running in the background with it playing without the kids hook at the beginning.
Okay.
And I did all of these at 15 seconds. So short ads. And those, looking at those, I'm still waiting on results, but it looks as though the ASMR has a slight potential. That's just kind of like an unboxing video, more or less, or the one with the hook with the kids at the beginning, and then it goes into the unboxing. But I'm a little, I will go down that route a little bit, but I've had an ASMR ad before, and I've tried iterations of that ad, and they've all failed. So this is kind of just like a rerun of an experiment with a slightly different twist on it with the grade level. Because before I just ran the exact ad script.
Right.
But I'm a little bit hesitant. I'll see how the metrics do over the coming days and kind of make an assessment from there of where I want to take it. But that test I am currently running right now. Then on top of that, with the grade level scripts that I ran with music and no music prior, with the no music ones, I took the 2 best performing ads. And I remember from one of the courses I took, they were like, take UGC content that you run, on your TikTok or whatever, if you have any, and cut it so that you have 3 different variations of it just with the hook. So you might have a 15-second ad, and then maybe you make a 13-second ad and an 11-second ad by cutting little bits off of the hook.
Right.
Essentially, that premise was to test the hook specifically.
So you're modifying the hook.
Right, in that scenario.
Got it.
Now, I was like, well, I've done a lot of testing with the hook. I have hooks that very consistently hook between 38 and 45%. That's very good. Anything in the 40 range is like, you're good.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I got the hooks down, but what I don't have down is how to get my cost to reach 1,000 customers lower, how to get my cost per click lower, and then also convert better from that so it can reach more people easier, optimize it easier, convert better, and then I can scale up. That's what I don't have. I have a hook that works, and I have several hooks that work relatively well, but I don't have the back half. I don't have a way to get people to stay. I don't have a great hold rate, like 7-8%. I'd like to be around like 12%.
Yeah.
So I don't have a great hold, and I still need to get people to actually click. And at this point, I'm like, I think I'm overwhelming them. So I'm trying to simplify it down. And so what can I do? Because I was thinking, I was sitting back and I was, at this point, as of today, I've made 91 ads total. And I was sitting back and I was like, I've made all these ads and a lot of them have shown some potential. And then I've tried to create new versions of them that reflect the ones that showed potential. And I was like, why don't I have this thing that I learned in the course where it's like you chop up the hook to try different hooks. And I was like, I'm cool not testing that right now because my hook rate's good. Why don't I use this same principle? And this, in hindsight, it's always fucking 20/20. But I was like, why don't I use that same principle to chop up the ad script in different ways to test different lengths and different messaging styles and different simplicity styles on the same ad I just spent 6 hours making. Like I make this one thing for 6 hours and then I test it once and I go, oh, well, let me spend another 6 hours making another version of it. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm like, I have this ad that's 25 seconds long that I can chop up in 5 different ways and have a bunch of different, 16 to 22-second ads that then I can retest that are literally different versions of the same ad. And then, like,
Instead
hindsight, it's always 20/20, but when you're in the moment trying to crank ads, it's,
But instead of modifying the hook, you're modifying the back end.
modifying the whole
retention.
messaging,
Right.
right? You're just chopping up, like, this middle sentence. I don't think I really need that. Cut it, adjust the footage accordingly. It takes like 30 minutes to do one. And I'm like, what the fuck? How did I not think of this earlier? Like, this is so simple,
Well,
right?
so I think that the key differentiator was realizing that you don't struggle with hooks as much as most people do. And so it's taking good advice for a problem that you don't have, right? Which is you can improve your hook and get it to 45%, but that's not really your issue because really your issue isn't
I'm already at
retention. Right.
45%.
Right. And so you're using the wrong solution for the problem that you have. But you can use a modification of that solution on a different part of the video.
Exactly. And
Right.
so what I did after that, this was yesterday, I was like, okay, I'm going to take the 2 best performing ads from the earlier test that I ran.
Yeah.
With no music, no text, because I ran 3 ads total there.
Yeah.
One of them didn't get much spend at all. Funny enough, it was the longest one. So I said, okay, let's take the 2 that have done pretty well and let's chop those up into as many segments as I can. I got one of them chopped up into 5 different ad versions that are all coherent, all say the same thing, but they're just condensed down. And then I got the other one chopped up into 3. I couldn't really chop it up more than that because it was just generally shorter.
Got it.
And so those I'm running right now. And what's really interesting is that I had these 8 ads, and I thought maybe the cost to reach 1,000 customers would be generally lower for ones that are shorter. Because what I'd been experiencing was, oh, my long form ads are really expensive to get out to customers, and my short form ads are cheaper.
Right.
So short form must be cheaper to get out to customers than long form. And what I realized is maybe just my long form ads suck because there doesn't seem to be a consistent trend of shorter form ads always being cheaper to push out to customers. It really looks like it's down to the messaging because I have ads that are within a second length of each other, 18, 19 seconds in this test that I've run. One might be $35 to push out to 1,000 customers, and one of them might be at like 24.
Right.
And that's like 50% difference, when you're looking at the scale of that difference.
Yeah.
It's only $10, but it's still 50%.
Right.
And when that scales up, it's a big deal. And so I was like, oh shit, and then the shorter form ones, they might be they might be, $28 to push out to 1,000 customers, but I have others that are like 40. Right. And so I'm like, okay, this isn't down to length primarily. This is down to the quality of messaging, how easy it is to follow, how much am I overwhelming the customer?
Right.
How can I simplify it down? How can I get from happy face to sad face and make that as easy as possible to follow and enjoyable to watch?
Well, and then also, if you have good hooks, like let's say your hook is what, 5 seconds of the video?
It's 3 to 4.
Let's say it's 3 to 4 seconds, right?
Yeah.
3 to 4 seconds is like a quarter of a 12-second video, but it's an eighth of a 24-second video, right? So if you have a good hook, regardless of length of video, you're going to get better retention for the shorter videos because the hook takes up a larger percentage of time of the video, right?
Yes.
Which it goes to support the theory of if you improve the messaging, then you can improve the longer form videos.
Yeah, for sure. That I definitely agree with. In terms of the hold rate, I think it really depends on what platform it's pushing it to. Because some platforms you can't see the length of the video, and so people just scroll off when they get bored. Some of them you can, like, sometimes you can see a bar.
You can see the bar,
right?
Yeah.
So I think it depends, but I think largely the reason the hold is better for some of these middle form ads is because I've cut certain segments out that are redundant or confusing.
Because messaging's better.
Because the messaging is better. Exactly, right. So I definitely agree with the end analysis there. But what I did was I created those, and then I took my ad scripts and I copied them over however many times I iterated, and then visually, what I started doing is just deleting the lines because I keep a big document of every ad script I've ever run. And what I started doing is like, okay, I'll copy this script that I used 5 times and cut up, and then I'll just delete the sentences that I didn't use. And I was like, no, don't do that. I was like, cross them out so that you could see visually easily what I took out. right there in front of you. So I did that and I copied them all over, organized everything, and I'm running that test right now. And so I don't have exact metrics on like what works, what doesn't work.
Right.
It just started this morning and it's still very early. 8 ads have only gotten $30 of spend at this point.
Right.
So it's really hard to tell, but in the coming days, I'll have a better idea. Additionally, I'm asking my mentor about something right now so I put out a bunch of different tests. And traditionally what I've done is just run it all under one umbrella campaign, one main campaign. The thing is that if that budget's 150, 175, I don't feel comfortable pushing out like 20 more ads under that spend. Because it's not enough, it's not a lot of money, and it's hard for Facebook to actually work through the data and for you to get data back when it's only $150 a day and 145 of that is being spent on your winning ad. So you only have like, maybe $5, $10 to allocate between 20 other ads. Even if Facebook does a really good job of being like, hey, these other ads suck, the winning ad is the best, so I'm just going to keep spending on that.
It still doesn't
That's
give the
cool
smaller
thing.
ones a fair shot.
But what I'm even saying the premise of Facebook has realized that my ads suck. And so it's like, like let's say it knows that they suck and that's why it's not spending on them. All right. So even let's take the fair shot out of the equation. Let's say that even with the small amount of spend, it can give it a fair shot and it knows best and I'm stupid. Right. Let's just say that. The problem I have is that at 50 cents a spend on an entire test, I have no reasonable data in order to understand what I can do better. Maybe Facebook already knows and it has a wealth of algorithm that it works through and it just understands right off the bat.
You need the insights.
I need the spend in order to understand the consistency of the insights across a broad spectrum so that I can apply it to my learnings.
Right.
So what I'm doing right now is I created separate campaigns to run some of these tests with independent spends so that I can get the data back. When I'm talking with my mentor right now is like, hey, I know that we traditionally run this umbrella campaign. If I'm doing tests, sometimes my whole test might only get $5 of spend over the course of 3 days because my ads suck. But I still don't want to waste the test that I'm trying to run. I still want to get data back on it. Do you think it's a good idea to maybe run a campaign for 2 days at $75 a day, spend $150 on it, get awesome data back? If it works or semi-works, I get some sales back. Maybe it's not profitable, but I still likely get some sales back. So maybe I lose $40, $50 on that test.
Right.
Right? But $40 or $50 that I potentially lose, maybe worst case scenario, right? Because I'll still get some sales back. Lose that money. I get better data back. I get a good test back. I can iterate more quickly rather than spending 7 days running a test at very low spend levels where it's hard to get data. And then I waste a bunch of time waiting for that data to come back because it's not getting spent. I'm like, I can condense the time down, iterate much more quickly. Yes, I lose a little bit more money, but it is faster. And given that we're coming up on the fourth quarter, everything for me right now is about speed. It's like, how quickly can I iterate this? What can I do to make this happen faster? How can I get more data back more quickly? What can I do to optimize this? Not from a financial, I'm going to wait out a week to see how this test goes, but like, I want test results in the next 48 hours. How do I make that happen? Like, that's where I'm at.
It's paying to know what doesn't work.
Exactly.
But it's a real world application of it's better to understand why you have failed than to be ignorant to why you succeeded.
Exactly. And it's a real world application of move your decision timelines to the next day or the end of the day instead of the end of the week, right? And so I'm trying to apply those principles a little bit and work through that. But that is everything business. I tried to go through it very quickly. I had a lot.
Yeah, I got you.
But just essentially a ton of different tests, ton of different learnings, still developing. I think I'm overwhelming the customer. How do I make the ad scripts so that they're not overwhelming? How do I make them so that they're easier to follow? How do I place in footage that's not distracting from the messaging? And how do I create messaging and footage in order to get my customers to click more, to buy more, and convert more sales? That's all encompassing what all of my tests have been revolved around.
Yeah. It sounds like a successful week.
Yeah, it was a good week. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Happy to hear it.
Yeah. What do you have for business this week?
I have also a lot this week. I think I only have one full page front sheet, which is less than normal. But it feels like a lot. I trimmed a lot of the fat out. We recorded the last podcast on a Friday at the Muscle Car Museum. So we have 2 weekends and a full week in this podcast update. And I had a lot happen. So right after the American Muscle Car Museum podcast, we went back to that beach house to do another open house with the intent to film more this time, right? And I said I wanted to do a lifestyle video in Melbourne. I talked through the market right now. The average listing price is 720,000, whatever, right? I found a clarification there, which is that if the average listing price is 500,000 and the average selling price is 520,000, you could intuitively say that houses are selling for more than they're listed for. And that doesn't make sense because you're not going to go to a house that's listed for $500,000 and then offer 520. That's ridiculous, right?
I mean, it depends. Sometimes happens, I think.
No,
Like in crazy markets, I've heard of that.
if there's a bidding war, that can happen for sure, right?
Crazy markets as in like BlackRock buying up residential real estate.
Yeah,
Sorry.
well, really, that's a genuine tactic you can use as well. So you can price a house at like, in that market where it's 500 and selling for 520, you could price it at 420, and people will go, dude, I'll pay you 420 today. And then you get another buyer that comes in and says, I'll do 430, and then they get in a bidding war, right?
Yeah.
But usually you end up around the 500 mark. It's rare that it ends up going like much past that, right? But you can tell that that's not always the case because the MLS gives us average listings price and average sale price, and then it'll give you the sold to original list ratio, right? So if houses are genuinely selling on average for more than they're listed for, that ratio should be over 1, right? In all the cities in Brevard, they're all below 1. The highest is like maybe 98, right? Meaning that for what you're listing your house for, expect to get 98% of that on average, right? So there are some that are going to be above that, and there are some that are going to be below that, but it's rare for them all to be above that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized, oh, well, the pool of applicants, the pool of data points is not the same between average listing price and average sale price, because there might be 150 houses that have been listed this month, and there might be 50 that have sold, right? And that's not the same 50. That's not guaranteed to be the same 50 that were listed this month. Those may have been listed in previous months, right? And even if they were listed this month, there's only 50 of them versus the 150 that are listed. So it's not as accurate to compare average listing to average sale to actually get the ratio you want to go to the original list to sale price ratio, which the MLS gives you handily enough, right? But I struggled with that in my head after the podcast because I realized I didn't really say it eloquently. And so I went back and did more research to try to figure out what I was actually trying to say. That's what I was actually trying to say.
Okay.
So we went back to the open house on the beach, and we filmed the lifestyle content that I wanted to. We stopped at a cafe in Melbourne Beach on the way to the open house and got breakfast. We filmed some B-roll content driving around. When we got to the open house, we started filming. We actually had a good amount of people come through the open house. A few of them were interested and didn't have real estate agents. One of them, if I recall correctly, they're from New York. They have a house in Vero. They're from a family of doctors. Their grandkids live in Florida, right? But their grandkids are now going to college at UCF. And so they're like, we're just looking for a place closer to Melbourne. I'm like, oh, are you looking to sell in Vero? Because we've bought and sold property in Vero before. And he was like, oh, no, we're just going to get another one. I was like, Jesus, this is a $2 million beach house, and he's just going to get another one. Okay, cool. And they decided to not go with that house because it doesn't have an elevator in it. And they didn't want to negotiate. They didn't want to deal with negotiating the price down to install an elevator. They're like, we're just going to find one with an elevator. So cool clients. They're seem like really cool people, but it's definitely like a mental shift for me.
Damn, dude.
We had a couple couples come through that
Way to make you feel fucking poor.
I know
When you rejected $2 million beach house because it doesn't have a friggin' elevator in it.
this
Dude.
couple was so funny. It was like
I got an elevator at my place too. It's when the water gets up to the front door, I just float on in.
This guy was so funny. It was like a classic old married couple, right? And they were talking about how much they hate HOAs, and I was like, great news, this house doesn't have an HOA. And they were like, yeah, one back in New York, I had a hunch that they weren't actually spending our money the way they wanted to be, so I sued it. And I was like, you did? Did you win? He was like, oh yeah. And he just went like this to me. And I was like, he was like, we got $2 million from that. But I was like, what? Dude, that's insane. But they were fun people. They wound up not wanting to go with the house, but that's okay. Really, I had made a mental shift from last week into this week, which is going to open houses. It's cool if you get people come through that turn into clients, but don't bank on that. Really target the open houses to make content to be posted online, because then you can reach more people, right? And not only can you reach more people if you run them as ads, but also when people who don't know you are recommended to you and they go to your online profile, they can see that stuff. So it's longer lasting, right? It's points of credibility, not just while I'm running the ad per se, but also in the future as well, because it kind of adds to my stack of evidence. My Instagram is my stack of evidence, I guess. So I filmed all that stuff at Mel Beach. Afterward, we went to the Melbourne Beach Market, which is like the fun. I think I've showed you the fun sodas they have there. It's like ranch dressing flavored soda, and they've got like a Stalin soda bottle too. They've got all the famous dictators.
Yeah.
It's a fun spot. So we went there afterward, and I filmed a bunch of content. And so then I got home and downloaded CapCut by Kay's recommendation from Social Media by Kay. And I was like, I guess it's time to start learning how to do this. And previously I was stuck at, I film on my camera, my phone. I film on my phone. I upload from my phone to Google Drive. Then I go to my laptop. I download from Google Drive to my computer. And then I upload from my computer to CapCut. Edit in CapCut. Download to my computer, upload to Google Drive, go to my phone, download from Google Drive, upload to Instagram, post from now. That's a lot of fucking steps, right? And I learned a valuable lesson in editing this Melbourne Beach video, because I had like 50 videos. None of them were less than like 15 seconds long. So I've got a shitload of video, all separate videos, right? And if you go to Apple and you like select all and then upload, if it takes a little too long for one video, it just won't upload that one. And so you end up waiting 40 minutes and then it only uploads half your stuff, right? And then you got to go through and figure out what half is what half. And so I ended up doing all of the timestamps for the last podcast, last Vision 79 podcast, while I did all the upload for this video. But at the end of it, I was like, okay, all the video has been uploaded to Google Drive. I can download it quickly from Google Drive to my computer and upload it to CapCut. No issue. That's not a problem. Got in there, started editing, realized that of all the platforms, TikTok has the biggest constraint on audio. So I had to go get my TikTok from audio. So that's what I did. I went to TikTok, found the audio I wanted, threw up a blank video so I could download the whole audio file, uploaded that to Google. No issue there. Edit my video. And as I'm editing, I'm realizing I don't know what order to put these clips in. I don't have a vision for this episode yet, right? I had an idea for an intro, which is I wanted it to be like you start in like a Google Earth view of the whole Earth, and then it zooms in through the clouds to Melbourne Beach. And I had seen recently one of the customers at Pauhana makes motorcycle videos, and he had done almost exactly that using Higgsfield AI, which Kay had recommended to me the week prior. And I was like, oh, I could use Higgsfield for this. That's awesome. I can learn how to do that. So I suffered dealing with AI iteration that you have to pay for like 3 hours to get this fucking intro. And I finally got one that I was happy with. And then I realized that the way I had recorded the video on the beach meant that it did not flow well from the zoom in from outer space into the slow pan of the beach. It looked choppy. And I was like, fuck, dude. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to run it. It's like half a second at the very beginning of the video. I don't fucking care. I'm just going to use it, right? But past that, I realized I needed a script. So I went out and I wrote script, recorded it behind Pauhana on my shitty little microphone. I used the AI mixer, the audio mixer that you recommended years ago, and I never used. It's so easy to use. Adobe AI audio mixer.
Yeah, Adobe Podcast Enhance.
Fantastic. And uploaded that video. And from there, it was way easier to edit the videos. Okay. What lessons have I learned from this so far, right? First and foremost, what I learned is that I should start with a script before editing, because the script is going to pace the video, right? The second thing that I learned is that when recording videos, I need a long still frame on whatever I'm starting, and then I do a pan. And I don't do the pan too fast because I can always speed the video up, but I need to not do the pan so slowly that I can't play it in regular speed, because I don't want to always accelerate audio clips or video clips, because then it's going to look like the pacing's off, right? The last thing that I learned, and this was the most painful lesson, is I do not need to upload every fucking video from my phone to Google Drive. If I start with a script and I upload the audio of the script into CapCut, I can get the vision pretty quickly listening to the audio and understand what needs to go next. And from there, I'll look through my phone, find the video that I need, upload it to Google Drive, because I can get one video to upload to Google Drive in like 10 seconds. Not a problem at all. It's if I'm doing a batch of them that takes fucking forever. So those were my big takeaways from the CapCut experience. But ultimately, I'm decently happy with the video. I feel like for a first video, it's not that bad.
Mhm.
Grace gave me the way that I formatted it was essentially it's like, are you interested to moving to the beach? Here's what the market is like in Melbourne Beach right now. Here's what the lifestyle is like in Melbourne Beach, and then call to action at the end, right? And Grace gave me a recommendation, which was either make the entire video about market analysis or sneak the market analysis into the lifestyle content. Don't start off with the market analysis, because if non-numbers people are watching the video, you lose them right away. And what you want to do is get non-numbers people to accidentally learn the numbers, and so sneak it into the lifestyle content. Um, and I don't know how I feel about that. So I kind of have to take a second and figure out what I'm going to do for my next one. We just went to Satellite Beach.
I know what you
How's
should.
there.
I don't know, but I have a recommendation if you're open to it.
What I wound up doing,
Okay.
was make an entire video dedicated to only numbers. And
Okay.
I recorded that. I haven't edited it yet, but I'm going to do my oops, all numbers video. And then for Satellite Beach, I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. And I'm open to your recommendation.
Are you posting on TikTok or Instagram and Facebook?
Both, all of them.
You're posting through Meta. So you have a campaign that you're running at a spend level.
No.
Blah, blah, blah.
These aren't ads. Right now, these are just reels.
Okay. Got it. Well, regardless, what I would do, because you still get metrics at least through TikTok.
Yep.
Is
You actually get metrics through the business page on Instagram as well.
Okay.
And the Facebook page.
Cool. I would take I'd take the ad that you made, the one or the two that you already have, the analytics only and the mixed one.
Yep.
And record 3 different hook sentences
Mm-hmm.
and just copy and paste those in, same footage, and just copy and paste those in and create 3 iterations of that first one you made.
Mm-hmm.
Then take 3 iterations of the numbers only one. And if you have no like real hook besides like it just starts off in analytics, create 3 different hooks, add them in at the start, run those.
Yeah.
And then take those 2 ads. And I just learned this. I literally learned almost all this stuff in the past 2 days. But and obviously hindsight 2020, I should have done this, but take those ads and chop out individual sentences and create different versions of the messaging
Mm-hmm.
on each of those. So you'll have 2 ads you've just created, then you can create 3 of each with your 3 different hook starts.
Right.
And then you can probably, with the 3 different hook starts, create 3 different ones of each of those.
Yeah.
Right, with your different messaging styles. And so now you have 18 ads
Yeah.
that you can work with, right? And then you have a lot of power to put those out there in real form together at the same time. And I would recommend running them at like even like a $25 spend level through like an ad campaign or something like that. Or, you know, if they're relatively simple ads and you give it like a week, $25 a day for a week will put you at $175 of total spend.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, after $175 of total spend, you'll have decent enough metrics on those 18 ads to be able to understand, okay, what worked well, what didn't, what messaging worked well, what didn't, how can I improve from there?
Yeah.
Because then you can take the 2 ads that you put in a lot of effort from and generate 18 from that and have a whole bandwidth of knowledge that you can gain from that.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, if you really want to go ham with it, you take those 18 and you split them up with no text and test it for yourself. I'm not, for me, no text worked well. I've seen ads that have text on them that friggin' kill.
I think that these will need text because I use the numbers. The analytic one needs text for the numbers.
Yeah.
Right. And that's because if I say 400, at least me, maybe I'm disabled, but when I say $500,000 market and then the 520,000 average sale, and if I list it for 420, I struggle to keep up with the numbers if they're not whole numbers. Right.
Yeah.
So like, Satellite Beach, the average listing price is $428,391, and the average sale price is $419,661. I don't fucking remember either of those numbers, right?
Yeah.
So I need to have them on the page. But for the lifestyle stuff and the in between, like maybe it doesn't need captions, like subtitles, but maybe just the numbers flash up. But I can alternate with numbers and captions, and then just
there's a whole bunch of iterations. That would at least be my recommendation, because what I've found is what I've done up until this point mostly is create ads, run them as tests, and this is the key part, take what I think works and doesn't work, and then apply it to the next ad.
Yeah.
Now, what I think works and doesn't work actually has traditionally come from analytics and numbers and me looking at this stuff and grinding through. But what I've realized is that it is very challenging, especially at the early stage, or at least what I found right now, to really understand what works and why. And that's fundamentally why volume is so important.
Yep.
And actually, Hermosi touched on this. He touched on it very lightly in a podcast, a different podcast he had this week. He said he was talking to a business owner about how to improve their business. This was another one of same style, like Zoom meeting call. And he was like, he said, this is what I think you should do. I have no guarantee what this will work, but in all probability, based on what I've seen in previous similar businesses, this is the direction I think you should go. And in that phrase, in that sentence, this is a guy who's, sold hundreds of, has dealt with hundreds of millions of dollars. And he's undoubtedly spent millions of dollars on advertisements, millions and millions, right? And if he's spent millions and I've spent 50 grand, for me to think that I can understand my metrics and understand what the customer likes and doesn't like better than he does is arrogant and stupid. And so, like, what I realized in that experience is, like, the key fault in my advertising and my analytics right now is I'm taking what I think works and I think doesn't work and then trying to apply that, but I have no real basis or understanding. And even people who have spent millions of dollars on ads still rely on volume to be able to understand the customer, because I am just one person and I'm trying to reach thousands.
Right.
And so what I would say is take those 2 ads that you've spent a bunch of time on and multiply them out, divvy up the messaging, divvy up the text, maybe try different music. And you can create so many different versions of those ads and get some level of data back, like broad spectrum, and be like, okay, at least I know this grouping spends and converts better. For you, it's probably just going to be spend mostly. This group spends better. So I'm going to take this group and I'm going to iterate that into another bunch of different versions.
Right.
And then take that grouping that works and then reiterate. Instead of, I took 2 ads. Okay, this one works better than this one. I think this one works because of this. Let me try it over here. It's a nightmare because concretely, when you just have those 2 ads to work from, there might be some tiny aspect that you're not catching on this one that's the reason it's working well, and you don't really understand how to iterate that until you have a bunch of different versions of it, and then you could take a grouping of those versions and apply it again and then redistribute.
It's Punnett squares, right?
I don't know what those are, but
so this is like one of my favorite things from like 5th grade science class, right? And it was, I forget the scientist's name, but he was trying to figure out how to make tomatoes grow bigger, right? And so he would cross-pollinate between plants, and he would use, there would be so many different groups. Wait, no, I might be misconstruing Punnett squares with something else. I don't know. I'm going to mix them up. That's what I'm going to do because it works for my story, right? He had all of these different pots. This pot was in the sun all day. This pot was in the shade all day. This pot was in the sun all day, but it had a different species of bee pollinating it. And this pot was in the shade all day, same species of bee. And but he had basically a different pot with different conditions everywhere. So that of all the variables he wanted to test, he had one pot for each variable to measure the outcome of each. And then after he had a baseline for all those, then he would start mixing variables and stacking variables to try to understand what worked where, right? So I think I might be confusing that with the actual what Punnett squares really are, I think, which is the human genome, which dictates what color eyes you have
or whatever.
That's it's Punnett squares is
science rules.
It's like, what's the likelihood of you having blue eyes? Your dad has 2 genes dominant for brown eyes. Your mom has 1 recessive blue eye gene, 1 dominant brown eye gene. You're gonna have brown eyes, right? I think that's actually Punnett squares. I gotta remember who this guy is with the bees and the plants, because he did some cool stuff. I'm gonna look into this for next week because I'm actually interested. But in any case, it's a good working example of how to follow the scientific method to figure out what variables are actually influencing what you need, and then how to manipulate those variables to get what you need, right? I think he did it with pea plants.
But yeah, that's what I would recommend doing, because right now what I'm looking at is I've definitely gotten better at making ads over time.
Yeah.
Because when I've put my old ads in separate campaigns, they've absolutely not converted at all. And when I put my newer ads in separate campaigns, at least they do convert. Maybe not quite up to the bar of my winning ad, but they do convert well enough to even be profitable sometimes.
Right.
So I know broad spectrum I've gotten better, right? But at the rate I've gotten better, I think I could have increased the rate at which I improved if I'd done this iteration strategy much earlier, instead of trying to think about what works, what doesn't work, and then reapply and reapply and remake and remake and remake, right?
So I think there is some value to that though, and I think that you and I are in different positions because the videos that I'm making right now, I'm not running as advertisements, I'm running them as exposure on
Yeah.
social media. So where I can make a Melbourne Beach lifestyle video with some numbers in it, and then an all analytics video on the north end of Brevard, like I recorded yesterday, and then another lifestyle video with Satellite Beach, but I sneak the numbers in the middle of the lifestyle stuff, right? I can play with that stuff and get better at editing without having to spend money. And then in a month or two, when I'm comfortable where I'm at with editing and I have a clearer vision of what I want my advertisements to look like, that's when I can start filming ads and running iterations, right? Because at that point, I'll have the experience to know, okay, I'm not worried about the view count on my Melbourne Beach video or my, retention level on my analytics video. I'm just trying to get comfortable with editing and being in the camera.
100%. I mean, there's definitely things in other aspects that I've gained from this process. So like I've gotten much quicker at editing text, editing footage, editing audio, figuring out how to place stuff in, because sometimes CapCut can be a little bit slow. So understanding, like if you click on an image or a text bubble, you don't actually have to like drag and position that on the screen. If you start to kind of know what ranges you want stuff in and visualize the grid, like just in your head on the screen, you can actually leave the editor tab open on the right-hand side and then click on each text clip. And then if you scroll the bottom, you have position metrics for X and Y. And then you could just input those and just click, input, click, input. And so that'll actually bring it all into, and once you start learning like what fonts you want, what sizes you want, kind of what positioning you want, like you can do that stuff all just typing,
right?
Instead of like dragging, clicking, adjusting, looking, but it's so there's other stuff that I've gained just from practice and iteration, but
Yeah.
I wanted to share that aspect with you because that's something I feel like I could have started a little bit earlier that I didn't, and that I missed out on a little bit, and now I'm kind of learning. So.
It's funny you mention it because I'm a big drag clicker guy. I like the
Yeah.
mouse. I like using
I love it too.
with the timeline and stuff too. I'm a big That's why I'm using CapCut rather than editing on Instagram and TikTok, is because my fucking fat thumbs can't get it perfect to where I need it, but the mouse can. And that's why I use the mouse.
Yeah. I love the click. Just sometimes I've had to learn how to do it through the positioning.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes it gets a little bit glitchy.
Mm.
And then I want to crank it out. And so I could, if it's glitchy, it might take me 5 or 10 minutes to do all of them click and drag and position, but I can do it in a minute and a half or 2 minutes just doing it through the typing on the little editor.
Okay, so it might be a difference in that. Mine hasn't gotten glitchy yet, and I don't have a lot in CapCut, so that might be the difference.
Yeah, I have ads that have, 10 or 12 rows.
Right, exactly.
So it just depends.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's the Melbourne Beach update there.
Sorry I interrupted your update. I wanted
you had to it.
feedback.
Yeah.
And hopefully help you out with the future stuff, of what I've learned. Spending mucho monies for me on ads.
I unfortunately intend to run Facebook advertisements, and when I get there, I will be consulting you.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because Facebook ads sound horrific, but when I get there, at least I've got a leg up because you've been doing it for a year. But that's my Mel Beach video. Glad that the video turned out okay. The whole time I thought I was going to hate it. I also learned to just trust the vision, because I had the idea for the intro at the start of the video and I had like a fuzzy outline. And then as I was pulling everything together, I was like, I hate this AI clip. I hate how it's so jerky with the next video thing. This like text box looks stupid. I don't like the audio. And as I'm adding each of these variables, I don't like any of the variables individually, but I know what I have in my head. And I hated it right up until I hit play and I watched the whole thing through. And then I was like, oh, it's exactly what I had in my head. It's so close. It's 90% of what I had in my head, and I like it. And so what I learned from that next time is as the vision develops, don't fucking think about the independent variable that I'm changing right now. Just try to make what I have in my head happen, and you'll like it at the end. And then if you don't like it after that, change it then. But that's my fucking OCD brain slowing me down. Anyways, that was Melbourne Beach. There's another Melbourne City Hall meeting this week. if you'll recall the last one, they argued about the fire department, right? Nothing about the fire department this week. They approved $1.3 million for repaving 4.6 miles of road in Melbourne. And that's a big deal because a few meetings ago when they were going over the annual budget, the road work was a big point of contention because Palm Bay has dedicated a lot more infrastructure to their roadways than Melbourne has, which supports Palm Bay really well for growth that Melbourne doesn't have. So Melbourne's doing a big city development project in East Melbourne. They're building this place where we're sitting right now. Space Coast Town Center is going to become like a new Avenues. They're talking about building an amphitheater in downtown Melbourne. Like, there's a lot of stuff they want to do. And if the roads aren't built out for it, then it's just not going to happen, right? Or it's going to happen and it's going to be a fucking nightmare. Traffic's going to get even worse, right? So it's a big deal that they have approved all this for repaving roads. It's not paving new roads, it's improving their current roads. They also approved a renewal for a contract for street sweepers. And this is interesting. Apparently, I think it's called like Sweep One or something like that. There's a company that owns the street sweeper trucks that comes around and cleans the roads, right? And that's not only a big deal because it keeps the roads clean, so it's less punctures in your tires, but it also prevents runoff from going into the river. So it's a two-pronged thing, which is good. But what's interesting to me is that the street sweeper company charges $40 per mile of road to sweep, and an additional $16 a mile for Department of Transportation DOT roads, because those are usually higher speeds. But I thought that was really interesting because I don't know what the average cost per mile of operations for those street sweeper vans, the trucks are, but I know it's for sure less than $40 a mile. And that business model is interesting to me. I thought it was cool, especially because I'm starting to learn
$40 a mile.
$40 a mile. Yeah.
Wow.
And so you got to think they do move slowly.
I mean, even if they move 5 miles an hour, though,
Yeah.
That's $200 that you make in an hour.
Yeah. And like the drivers, I'm sure they have to have their commercial driving license because they're operating heavy machinery. But I don't think it costs a ton of money to have a driver CDL certified. They're probably not getting paid
Probably
much
not.
because they're just driving trucks, right? So it's not like a highly skilled job.
Yeah.
This is similar to the valet company that Greg ran. That I'm just interested in how the business model works. But when I heard that, and then an additional 16 miles an hour for DOT roads, thought it was interesting. Anyways, they approved that, and then people are upset because apparently there's the Daily Bread shutdown in Melbourne, right? So no more homeless shelter in Melbourne. So the homeless people have kind of dispersed throughout the county more so, right? I drove through downtown Melbourne going beachside for some reason the other day. And you know the intersection at the base of the causeway as you're about to go over the causeway in downtown Melbourne? There's a Wawa and One Harbor Place on that corner. I have driven through that intersection an average of over once a day over the past 6 years, right? Having rode there every morning and every afternoon for Space Coast Crew, I had to, for FIT rowing, I had to drive through that intersection, right? I have never once been through that intersection and had 0 homeless people on one of the corners there. And for the first time in 6 years of driving that road, no homeless people on
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
I was shocked. But residents were complaining this time at this meeting because apparently there's a company called Foods Not Bombs, bombs like the weapons, that they have like a food truck and they feed the homeless, right? And they're scheduled, they call them feedings, which kind of sounds inhumane, but I guess it's descriptive. They have scheduled feedings at different public parks on different weeks, right? And there's these residents that live in a neighborhood in Melbourne. I think it's called Riverview Park. It's south of that intersection I was talking about.
Mhm.
Every Sunday at 7 p.m., apparently that truck comes by and all the homeless people aggregate in that park. And it's really bothering the people that live in that neighborhood because their kids play at that park. Like there's kids' playgrounds there and there's homeless people there, not just at 7 p.m., but they get there early because, I mean, you don't have a car, so you can't exactly get there at 7 o'clock, right? So they kind of migrate from wherever they were the day before. And it's really bothering people. So so there was some talk about what to do with where to move the Foods Without Bombs food trucks to. I thought that the owner of the Daily Bread was going to start a mobile food truck business like this, but I guess not, because he spoke there and he was like, hey, here's the updates on Providence Place, which is the affordable housing that's going to go on Apollo. They want to
Okay.
break ground late this year, construct next year, and then start housing people in summer of 2027. So that's their timeline. And then the city council members knew that there would be people complaining about foods not bombs, and so the guy who owns Daily Bread was like, "I can confirm I'm not associated with them." So I thought that was interesting. So
Hmm.
that's the summary of the Melbourne City Council meeting. Okay, I'm gonna skip around here a little bit. Um, we went to Satellite Beach this weekend to do an open house there. We found a house on the river. This is cool because we did the beach house, but this is the first open house I've done on the river, which is nice because I did the waterfront certification stuff and got to learn about like canal depth and canal width
Mhm.
and sea walls and retaining walls and stuff like that. Um, and this house has a 8,000 pound boat lift, which is good for a center console boat, like a 24-foot center console boat. But some people came through and they were like, "Hey, we have like a 31-foot boat. Do you think it would fit?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's kind of big. You could retrofit it, whatever." It was a fun open house, right? And it's in a neighborhood that I'm familiar with. It's in Palm Shores, which is just south of just south of Patrick's Space Force Base. It's across the street from you. Nice
Cool.
neighborhood. Yeah. We had um decided to
Was it
go
technically Satellite Beach or was it Melbourne, Brevard County? Was it Melbourne County property or Satellite Beach?
Satellite Beach.
Okay, because there are areas riverfront that are Melbourne,
Yeah.
instead,
Yeah.
and they have very, different rules when it comes to, like, what you can store outside and how.
Yeah.
What's interesting.
It's interesting if you look at
You
the
go into some
district
areas and you
map.
see, like, boats in people's yards, and you're like, "It's
Yeah.
fucking what?"
That's
Yeah.
actually a
We
big issue because
Yeah.
if you look at the city boundaries, right? If you look at Melbourne, it's all on the mainland, and then there's like a little bit that extends across the river into the east side, which is
Yeah.
fucking weird, right?
Yeah.
But that's also a problem with waterfront properties because um, a standard lot. So like let's say that building, right? The lot that building's on is maybe like, I don't know, an acre, right? So you can put in the listing 1 acre property and you can use all that, right? A waterfront property, usually the property lines extend out into the river. And so some shitty real estate agents will say it's a 5 acre lot on the water. It's not. It's a 1.5 acre lot, but the property line technically extends out into the fucking river, right?
Yeah.
Um, and so that's a problem for some waterfront properties too. Fortunately, the listing agent for this open house is like probably he's the best listing agent I've worked with on an open house. He reached out to us. He was like, "Hey, this one has a non-conventional roof. Here's all the paperwork on it. Here's everything that's been done to the house." He was super helpful. Shout out to Bill Burdett with Blue Marlin. He's a real one. We decided to go film content in Satellite Beach beforehand so I can make another lifestyle video. We went to the Salty Bagel. Fantastic. Great bagels, great coffee. And then we went to do the open house. And I told Grace this is going to be an easy open house because it's right on South Pat. So I can just walk from the house to go do all the signs. She was like, "Sounds good." I then got carried away and I put signs all up and down South Pat. So it took me like 40 minutes to put signs out because I went way overboard with it. Um, and I should have listened to Bill because he says that usually he gets pretty good foot traffic at open houses. And I didn't believe him because I usually don't get more than like maybe five groups is probably on the higher end of
Mhm.
people that I have come through. And with all the signs, I wanted to record in this house to make the lifestyle video. And there were people in the house the entire time. Like it
Wow.
was nonstop. Like frequently there would be two groups at a time. So Grace would have to talk to one and I would have to talk to the other. And then a third group would come in and then Grace's group would leave and like we'd all like
Oh,
juggle.
wow.
It was fucking busy, but we met a lot of really awesome people. Um, and it was good to have that many people come through. Um, and so I gave Grace the gimbal and the camera, and I was like, "Okay, it's open house ends in 10 minutes. I'm gonna go take the signs down. Will you record some stuff before we leave because I'd like to have this for the thing?" And she was like, "Yeah, don't you have specific things from the Melbourne Beach video that you want done?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I walked her through um, the notes that I shared earlier in this segment update. And she was like, "Is there any particular part of the house you want recorded?" And I was like, "Film so much volume that it's unreasonable to think that there's any video in there I can't use." So I used the little Hormozy quote.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
did a great job. So I'm
Cool.
looking forward to editing that video. We had intended to go to lunch in Satellite Beach, um, but we ran out of time because we had to go to a showing. So then I wanted to go back to Satellite Beach for dinner. We didn't have time for that either. That's my next update. Um, but we wound up at the Blue Marlin office at the end of the day, and I was like, "Fuck, we haven't gotten groceries yet, which we normally do on Saturdays. Didn't record any satellite.
That was yesterday?
This was yesterday.
Okay.
Didn't record any satellite beach footage in the afternoon, so I can't finish the satellite beach video. I can't even really write the video because I have to write the script first, like I said. And we haven't finished recording everywhere, so I can only write the script for the Salty Bagel and the open house and the market report, but I can't do the third location that we're going to film because I don't know where it is yet. So fuck, what do I do? And I was like, I guess it's a bust. I could go write my podcast sheet, whatever. And then I was like, actually, we're in the room that I've been planning on filming this numbers video on. So I'm just going to film it now. So I took advantage of the opportunity. I busted out the recording in like 15 minutes. And so now I have a big block of video that I can go edit. And that video is a market analysis on the whole north part of Brevard. So it's Mims, Titusville, and Port St. John.
Nice.
And that's going to cover the average listing price, average sale price, sold to original list ratio. So like how much can you reasonably expect when you're selling your house, but also how much is it reasonable to ask off for a house when you're making an offer? How many listings there are? Is it a buyer's market and why? For those 3 cities, right? So I filmed all that. And then depending on how I like that one, I'll either reshoot all of it if I hit it. And if I don't, then I'm going to post it. And then I'm going to do one for the north central part of Brevard, like Rockledge and Cocoa Beach type area. So that's that section done.
I want to add one thing too.
Yeah,
I
sure.
thought of this. When you're doing the ads, something that you can do that's been really beneficial to me. I didn't use it in the beginning because I was just testing other stuff, but something that I think will work well. I haven't tested it personally, but I've seen it work really well in ads that have no text on screen without music, but they add sound effects for certain things. And I've noticed this in specifically numbers ads that I've looked at, where they'll write 500 and they'll have a typing sound effect underneath it. And there are effects in CapCut where you can take a block of text and have it like type.
Yep.
And so you can
Intro
like,
discussion.
if it's 500,000, you could do like a 500,000. And then if you're doing like a divide, there are GIFs where you can have a line draw on the screen and then write your other number and type it out. And a really nice feature in CapCut, you can go through like external platforms to download sound clips and then upload them and then put them in, see if they work. I don't like that process. So what I did is in CapCut, it's like Echo Sound or Unisound or something like that. There's an additional monthly membership that you can buy. It's like $10 a month, but it gives you a broad range of music and sound effects that you can pick from. And then
or something.
It's in CapCut. If you open up CapCut and you go to like the sound effects, it'll prompt you to be like, hey, we can give you a few, but if you want this, like here it is. And you could just buy the subscription right from CapCut.
Right.
But that program has proved really nice for doing sound effect stuff. I used it because I did a longer form ad with some, and I started off with some research studies that I had like kind of pop up onto the page intermittently.
Right.
And I did like a paper flipping sound effect. Yeah. And it actually turned out really nice. And that ad didn't work overall, but the hook rate was like 48%.
Right.
So it's super, super good. And so I think like little sound effects like that kind of get people in tuned a little bit. I don't have like real proof to show it, but I've seen it used a lot. And so I wanted to recommend it if you're doing like a numbers thing.
Yeah.
It might be useful to add those little sound effects. You may see it help people retain through the ad. I'm not sure, but wanted to throw it out there.
It's something that I like, and so it's something that I'll include.
Yeah, you can try it.
I made a video this week for Space Coast Crew. I made a Discord for the team, and I'm getting requests to like make new channels and like add people and whatever. And a lot of people have usernames, not their first and last name. So I was like, fuck, okay. Earlier, the plan was to make the Discord, implement it over the summer, get everybody and integrate it into the app so that by the beginning of the season, it's good to go, right? And then the bias board staged a coup, and it's a fucking shit show right now, right? So ultimately, the president of the board, before he left the board because they were so biased, or maybe they voted him out, I can't fucking remember. He was like, hey, Mason, Justin, do you guys think you could get that Discord ready to go like this weekend? And we were like, yeah. And so I sent him a link and I was like, can you try this and let us know if it works well? He's like, yeah. And then he sent it to the entire team. So we kind of like had to get it like up and running super quickly. So I didn't have time. I wanted to make tutorial videos for everything, but at the time I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know how to screen record. I just fucking wasn't comfortable with it. And so I didn't have any tutorials ready to go, right? This week, I was getting a lot of requests and I was like, I can't manage this with people that have usernames instead of their first and last name. And then I was like, well, this is a good opportunity to learn how to edit more in CapCut, right? And so I just like quick screen reported how to change your new username for the Space Coast Cruise server, not other servers, in case you want to have an anonymous username for other servers, right? Threw the Space Coast logo on there, did like a little intro outro and added some music. And I did the whole thing in like 30 minutes. And I was like, oh, this was an awesome little exercise. But I would have liked to add sound effects to that. So if I go do more, and now I can go back and add sound effects. So those are my intro sections. Here, the apartment that we've been helping our mutual friends find, we got the lease sent over to them. We read the lease. We had a couple questions on it, specifically about insurance, because that apartment complex says, hey, you have to pay for property insurance. And so or liability insurance. So like, if there's flood damage, your monthly payment is going to help us cover it, right? It's rolled into your monthly fees. Don't worry about it. And we were like, well, what if we get our own insurance? Can we take that off? And they were like, no, you can get, personal property insurance. You could even double up on liability if you wanted to, but it's not really necessary. But the apartment complex just makes you pay for it every month to cover their bases. And that's fine. We had a couple other questions too, but they signed the lease. So that's officially done. They're moving in like 2 weeks. They're super happy. They're super excited. Yeah, I'm stoked for them, dude. And then we sent them the Google things to sign. Or Google reviews to write us a review. And we've gotten one of those so far. So I'm now up to 2 5-star Google reviews, which is great. But I'm stoked. So now I can make a post. When I got them the offer for $1,000 off, I was like, I'm going to make a post right now. And then I was like, I should wait until they sign the lease, because you can make a post when you get a house under contract to say that you got the house under contract. But, usually you'll make the just sold post, right?
Yeah.
And so for apartments, it's like, I got you $1,000 off. You're not bragging if they don't sign the lease. But anyways, I'm stoked for them. I'm going to make the graphic at some point this week. And then I'll use Meta to schedule it to post at the best time, right? Okay. Here's my big update for the week. So 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had a Remax agent reach out to me from West Virginia.
Oh, yeah.
And say, hey, we've got a client moving down to Florida. We need someone in your area. She said, they're looking to move to the Palm Bay, Merritt Island, Melbourne, Titusville area. And I was like, okay, well, that's the whole county. But that's all right. Like, put me in touch with them. So they wrote me a referral for 25%. So if I help these people find a house, then I have to give 25% of my commission to the people that referred them to me, right? And they were like, they're going to reach out to you eventually. And I was like, okay, got it. And at first I was like, is it a scam? Because real estate people scam all the time. And then I was like, well, this is a Remax office. It's legit. It does look like a real team. That's cool. This is a real referral letter, right? They gave me names, but they didn't give me contact information or what they're looking for. So like, I'm not really sure. And eventually the client reached out to me, and she seemed real. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I'm flying to Florida or driving to Florida. I can't remember. I want to look at houses this week. And I want to be under contract on a place before I go home. And I was like, okay, in theory, sounds good. In my own head, I'm like, I don't know if this person's real. So I work with Grace to find a couple properties, and then the client sends us properties. And they're like, these are the places that we want to see. And I'm like, oh, okay, sounds good. We can schedule showings for like Thursday. She was like, awesome, sounds good. See you Thursday. And I was like, okay, I guess this sounds real, right? So I took off work Thursday, showed up at the first showing, and so did the client. Real person, super nice, experienced buyer. So they are familiar with how the offer process and showing process works. They're handy, so they're not really worried about like fixer-uppers or anything, as long as it's not like super bad damage. So we saw 7 properties on Thursday.
Wow.
They liked 3 of them, and they wanted to submit an offer on 1 of them. So Thursday ended at the Blue Marlin office writing an offer for this property.
Wow.
Which fucking shocked me. I did not wake up that morning thinking that that's what we would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, the client was like, ideally, I'd like to be under contract this weekend and then have the inspections done next week to move in like before August. And I was like, fuck it. Okay, sounds good. Like, let's find you a spot. So we looked at those properties, submitted the offer. We got a counter back on Friday that did not work for our clients. And so they said, all right, let's just go look at more houses. So they found a couple. We went on the MLS and came up with a big list to go. So we showed them 3 more properties yesterday. And that's why I wasn't able to record anything at lunch in Satellite Beach, because we had to go to these listings in Merritt Island. So we looked at those houses. We looked at 3 of them. 2 of them were busts. 1 of them was solid, and they want to write an offer on that one. So we wrote up the offer last night. But the way that the offer process works is if you're financing something, so you're working with a bank to get a mortgage, you have to go to your bank and say, hey, I want to buy they're looking in like the $300,000 range, right? I want to buy a $300,000 house. I want this house. I'm going to put an offer in for $300,000 on this house. And your bank goes, okay, I'm going to write you a letter that says tentatively, we're going to approve you for a mortgage. You shouldn't have any issues with it, right? They give you that letter. You give that letter to your real estate agent, and the real estate agent puts that in with the offer and sends that to the listing agent, right? We had that approval letter on Thursday for that offer, but for the house they saw that they liked yesterday, we don't have an approval letter for yet. And we could send the approval letter from Thursday to the listing agent and say, hey, it's not official, but just so you know it's a serious offer, here you go. But that's unconventional. Usually listing agents don't even fucking pay attention to offers that don't have a pre-approval because like they don't know if you're serious or not, right? Even though like if you get on the phone with it, whatever, it's just unconventional. You should have a letter, right? So we wrote up the offer, it's ready to go, but we don't have the pre-approval letter yet. And just as between segments of this podcast, I checked my phone and I think we got the pre-approval letter. So Grace is sending in the offer on that house. And they were like, okay, dude, these people rock. They were like, they sent in their offer on the first place on Thursday. The people countered too high and they were like, fuck it, next one. So now we're on the next one. And they're like, dude, send this offer in and tell the listing agent it's our best, last, and final, or we're going to write an offer on this one. I'm like, okay, cool. So like now we've got other offers, like we're starting to write them ready to go just in case. So of all the houses that we saw, I think there's a couple that fit the bill for what they're looking for. My concern, dude, one of them is perfect. It's like, you don't have to do fucking anything to it. It's exactly what they're looking for. It's just the top end of their price range. But there's a couple other ones that need some work that is more comfortable. They just want a good deal, rightfully so. And so I'm hoping that we are able to get an offer accepted on one of these today or tomorrow so that they don't have to revisit properties they've already submitted offers on and go up in price. But in any case, I think we've seen enough properties that they can go back home to West Virginia and we're going to find them a good spot and get them under contract. So
nice. Congrats, man.
Yeah, I'm stoked, dude. Nothing.
Now your game will be, how do I get all of my clients to be like that?
Yeah, dude, these people fucking rock.
That's awesome.
Super great. Yeah. And Blue Marlin charges a $369 documentation fee to all clients, buyers or sellers, which essentially says, hey, we're going to do all the paperwork with you to buy a house. We're going to keep that paperwork on hand for 5 years. And so we're going to charge you $369 as like a fee to cover that cost, right? And I have heard of Blue Marlin agents either just making the clients pay it, which is totally their right to do. It's not uncommon for real estate brokerages to charge a fee, or just covering it themselves, right? And I don't like either of those options, right? Because I hate to hit my clients with fees that, you know, they wouldn't be encountering at some other brokerages, but I also don't want to just like eat the cost and tell them that I'm going to be nice, right? And so I came up with an idea that is based off of some other sales program. I can't remember what it is. I don't know where I heard this. Maybe I came up with it myself. Anyways, I'm calling it 50/50 free. And essentially what it is, hey, here's this $369 charge that you weren't expecting, right? It bums me out that you have to pay this. I don't want you to pay it. Here's what I'm offering. If you write me a Google review after we close on the house, I'll give you $50 off of this. I'll cover $50. If you post on Instagram or Facebook, that's another $50. If you do all three, I'll pay the whole thing. And so it's essentially, it's free to make a Google review and an Instagram post. Doesn't take much time, but referrals mean more to me than money does, and I don't want you to have to suffer. So if you'll give me an honest review of how I performed as your real estate agent, I'm happy to cover this cost for you. And Grace and I had gone back and forth on it because it can be kind of confusing with like, oh, well, $50 off for an Instagram post, $50 for a Facebook post, $50 for a Google review, or you do all three and you get $369, right? Obviously, it makes sense to do all three. It's not a big deal, right? And Grace was like, well, what if it's 50 for Google and then 50 for Instagram or Facebook? Or what do we do if they don't have Instagram or Facebook? And like, it got kind of confusing. And so we were like in the middle of figuring that out when this client was like, let's make an offer. And I always want to bring this up before we submit an offer because it's like, hey, you know, we've already signed the buyer broker agreement, but before we actually go in on a contract together, I want to be transparent about this fee. And so I pitched it to the client the way that I have it written here. And she was like, "That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear it because my partner that I'm buying the house with doesn't like paying fees, but we're more than happy to give you a review and make some posts." I was like, "Awesome." So it worked. So I think moving forward, I'll make a graphic that makes it look nice. But that's my business update.
Nice.
What's your life update?
My life update is it's good. I have a good life update this week. It's actually it's shortish.
Hell,
So all of my business stuff happened between Wednesday of this week and now. So anything before that, so the Tuesday, Monday, and then that previous weekend was all life stuff. The main one being Miata work. Did a bunch of Miata work. The work included valve cover gasket, cam seals, crank seal, timing belt, water pump, idler pulley, tensioner pulley, power steering pump delete, AC belt reroute, coils, plug, coolant flush, oil change, air filter, transmission fluid, differential fluid, brake fluid, and clutch fluid.
it's a lot of work.
A lot of work. So that was a majority of the work. And when I mean, I would say probably anyone does this volume of work, the more work you do, the higher the potential something doesn't go well. And so I was very mindful going through all this stuff. And as of today, the car's been running for almost a week now. I have no issues, no leaks, no problems.
That's awesome.
So, which is great news because not all of this work went perfect by the book.
Oh, really?
Almost all of it did. The one thing that really hung me up for a while and that I was a little bit worried about, which I'm still, I've gotten it. I'm at a place right now where I'm comfortable with it. There's actually two things. One of them is easier to solve than the other, but the main thing that really stressed me out was the fluid damper on the front of the car. Getting
The
that
fluid damper?
that harmonic damper on the front, the one that we added together many moons ago,
Yeah.
that one, getting that off was very anxiety inducing.
Well, we installed it really well.
Yeah, we did a good job on the install. It's a lot easier to install brand new parts that have zero corrosion on them
Yeah.
than it is to install one that has a little bit of corrosion here and there. It's been worn in a little bit. Like doing that and getting it right is a lot trickier. Especially pulling that damper on and off was very anxiety inducing. Because the amount I've probably put approximately 120, 130 foot-pounds of force on the actual ratchet to get this thing to start moving off the crank.
It's a lot.
It was a lot. And I had it set up right. I checked the setup like 3 different
So
times.
this was a claw puller you used?
No, I would have broken something for sure if I had a claw puller.
What'd you use?
I have a special kit for these harmonic dampers.
Got it.
That actually bolts onto the front of them.
Oh,
And so I had the setup to do this, and it
Right.
was still anxiety inducing.
damn.
Like I wasn't even trying to do anything ghetto.
Right.
Yeah, it was like this wasn't a claw puller. This wasn't anything. This was a metal plate that bolts onto the front of the damper, and then has a rod that mates or gets onto the front of the crank. I ended up doing it to the front of the crank because the mating, it has a threaded portion that will thread in, but I couldn't. The threaded portion wasn't quite big enough or long enough for me to get enough threads into it to feel comfortable pushing on those threads.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing it just onto the head of the crank,
Got it.
pushing it off of that.
It's probably better.
It ended up being better. I'm glad I went that route because you really don't want to fuck anything up on the threading of the crank. That you definitely don't want to do.
Needless to say.
Yeah. So, with this setup, and I was very meticulous in how I set this up, make sure it was perfectly aligned because, I was putting force on. I eventually got it to come off. That was the first half of this hurdle. The second half of this hurdle is the key wet. Now, every single forum online is like, put the key in the crank and then set the harmonic damper on it and then slide it all jiffy. Fuck that. I tried it 3 different times. You cannot get the key to sit on the crank and then press this pulley on because the pulley almost has an interference fit with the key. And as you try to push this pulley on, if you even are able to get the key to kind of sit in the pulley, it'll cock the key up. And then as you push on it, it just won't sit right. And so if you keep going, you're just going to bend the key. It wasn't doing it right. And so I ended up pulling it apart, and what I did was I measured. I got into the forums again, and I figured out how far the key has to be in the crank, um, on the crank versus the pulley, and I set the key into the pulley first, and then lined it up, spotted it, and then drove it on.
Got it.
And so that worked really well. I wasn't able to get the key is set flush with the surface of where the bolt hits the crank pulley.
Okay.
It's supposed to be 6 millimeters in, but I took some measurements, and given the torque value, and given that most of the guys that run these dampers are throwing a lot of boost at the cars, they're like 400, 500 horsepower cars. I feel
a lot
comfortable
of
with
horsepower.
the key sets. And also I feel comfortable where the key sits, because I remember when I initially installed this, I had that same thing when I was looking at the key. And when I pulled the key out this time after 40,000 miles, it looked all perfect. And so
When we did this in college, I was probably shit-faced at this point. I probably wasn't paying much attention.
it was pressing that thing on. I pulled it on and off 3 times.
Really?
Yeah, just to make sure I got the key
jeez.
perfect, because I
Huh.
really didn't want to fuck up the keyway.
Yeah.
I didn't want to press this thing. I didn't want to bend a key, because this is a Sunday. There were no keys in stock around the area. I would have to wait another 2 days to get a key, and I would also be in the exact same position I am now.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm going to take my sweet time with this. And so pressing this thing on, what I was hitting a point where it became a little bit more resistance, and I didn't feel comfortable going.
Right.
And so what I ended up doing is I got the key all set up. I got the pulley set up all right. And then this wasn't on the forums anywhere, but I was like, all of these forums are talking about installing a new damper. I don't have a new damper, and there's a little bit of corrosion where the bolt plate meets the actual crank pulley.
Right.
A little bit of corrosion, just a tiny bit. And I was like, what if I just lubricate that portion where the bolt has to ride across this crank pulley? Maybe I can alleviate some of the tension there, and as well as lubricating the actual pulley and the crank, the nub on the end, lubricate all those touch points and then try it.
Right.
And I tried that. I got it to a point where I was comfortable with the amount of resistance that I was facing when pushing it on.
Yeah.
I got it to push on all the way, no problem. And then I was a happy camper. It was set. I was done with it.
Right.
So the next hurdle I faced was getting the power steering out, that all set up correctly, but then routing the new belt onto the AC compressor. Now, there's a lot of people. There's a new kit out from Flying Miata that came out relatively recently that actually adds an idler pulley to where the power steering was, and then does a belt, a regular belt, whatever. I had already bought stretch belts, and I had the tool to install stretch belts, but I have never installed or done a stretch belt. And so for me, it was a little bit of a different experience, but I bought 3 different sizes when I initially did. I bought a 770 millimeter, a 775, and a 780. I went with 775. It was the middle of the range that I researched. And it was a little tight when I initially installed it. So I was a little bit worried about it. But after, I was like, I'm going to put this on. It's a little bit too tight for my liking right now. But given that it's a stretch belt, I'm going to let it work itself for a week.
Let it heat up.
See how it kind of forms and melds. And when I checked it yesterday, it feels good, and so I'm happy with it right now.
Awesome.
But all in all, the car work went well. I still have a weep out of the front crank seal, but that's to be expected. Anytime I've done that seal, I've always had a weep,
Interesting.
and that seal doesn't set in as tight as the cam seals do. And so I think it's just a manufacturing thing. There's a lot of different people who have issues with the cam seals not setting in tight enough, and they leak. I don't really have that problem, or at least not yet, but I have it with the crank. So that's always, it's not even like a noticeable weep. It's like after 100 miles, you'll see like a faint haze of oil. It's like very, very small. And it's interesting. So that I completely expected. That I was not surprised by. It's always had that. It's done it on any new seal I've ever put in there.
Right.
But other than that, the transmission fluid, I tried an Amsoil transmission fluid. I love it. Better than the red line options that I've tried, the various ones.
How did the fluid you took out look?
Terrible. But it's always looked terrible. The differential and the transmission in that car have always looked horrible.
Really?
Yeah. They always, like, you remember that one time at Autobahn? Yeah, where we had the brown and like
there were big
put the
chunks
stick through it.
There were chunks in there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It was the same way.
Yeah.
And so, it's always looked horrible. And so I don't expect it to last forever. Eventually it'll go, and that's fine. It is what it is.
You could put
but
a T56 in there when it says that.
I'll do the NB Miata 6-speed.
Oh,
That would be nice.
better?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a direct plug and play.
Gotcha.
You just put it in. The only thing is that it usually people will do the differential because of the gear ratios. They'll do it at the same time. So that's why, I haven't really even considered that because my 5-speed works fine and it would be a little bit more of a project with the differential.
Gotcha.
Um,
Oh, the NBs have 6 speeds?
yeah, I think some of them do. Some of them do. It was optioned at least with a 6-speed
Gotcha.
on like the M and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, but that food has always looked terrible. Wasn't surprising. But I, got that drained out, new food in there. Super happy with the car. Runs great, drives great, feels good.
Awesome.
No complaints. So I had to take the steering rack out. And anytime you set the steering rack back in, the bolts, they don't like sit at they don't have like a perfect retention point. There's like some swap in the brackets. And so anytime you take the power steering rack in and out, or the rack in general, you'll get a little bit of a wheel twist to it. So I'll probably take it in to get an alignment. It's not that the car's out of alignment because the alignment is still straight on the
So you
suspension.
now align it to
It's
the
just
steering
the
wheel.
wheel
Yep.
is just a tiny bit off because of how that rack has shifted from me taking it in and out.
Yeah.
So I'll take it to get an alignment. It's under the 12-month warranty
Oh, cool.
on the alignment, so I should be able to hop in and out of there for free.
Sweet.
But other than that, super happy with the car.
Cool.
Runs and drives great.
Awesome.
Feels good. So you're glad that's out of the way, and now that major service work is done for the next 40,000 miles.
Right.
So now I can happily, just pretty much just do oil changes,
Right.
up until
The transmission.
232,000.
Right. Right.
So
Hell yeah. That's awesome.
yeah, happy about that. Then another update, I got my shipment of my stuff from my dad's place in the U-Haul container.
Yeah.
I got all that out. So I got my little motorcycle that I'm going to use as like a pit bike around Satellite Beach.
Around the Rolex.
What?
Around the Rolex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. Bring it to the 24. That would be fun. I got my vintage bicycles. I got my racing tools from my karting.
Sweet.
I got my drum set and some other small odds and ends. And then yesterday, I took a small break. Had a date with Sammy. Some of our friends have kayaks, and they had a couple spares. So we went up to, I think it's a Manatee Hammock Park.
Okay.
It's about 40 minutes north of Satellite Beach.
Gotcha.
Went up there, dropped some kayaks in last night, and saw the bioluminescence.
I was about to say, I know
So-
people that have gone there for the bioluminescence.
Yeah, so that's where we went, did that. It was super nice, super peaceful. It was nice to because I spent about 12 hours editing ads on Friday, and then up until about 6 p.m. on Saturday, I did the same thing.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to actually go outside the house, breathe fresh air, and kind of paddle around. It was nice to have an experience where you're just it's good to take a
breathe.
2-hour breather once in a while and just be quiet and observe nature and look at the light in the water. Wow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just basic shit like that. And it was cool though. I went up on the dock there as well, and you can look down the water in the bioluminescence and you could see the fish.
Yeah.
You could see them because of the bioluminescence. So the fish will glow as they move through the water. That was really cool. And so yeah, I enjoyed that. Had a 3-4 hour break yesterday and just kayaked around a little bit. But that's pretty much been my life.
That's so funny. I had the polar opposite experience with the same feeling yesterday. Because I love the breather of doing something simplistic and relaxing after stupid amounts of work. But this week, work blew up this week. So I had a lot, when I would go into the office, I was actually doing work all day at the office.
Yeah.
And then afterward we would go do showings, or I would be making content, or all of Thursday was showing. So it was wake up earlier than you would to go into work a normal day, and then go do showings all day, and then write the offer, and then make more content, and then go home. And so from, I would say, Tuesday this week until this morning when I took a minute to watch the F1 race, I was I got in bed last night and I was I haven't been this tired after having this many nonstop days of productivity probably since college. And I was I'm so tired. I don't have to take melatonin. I just fall into bed and I fall asleep. I've been going to the gym more consistently. I was dude, this is This week has been awesome. I feel like
Yeah.
I have done so much.
This was a
Like,
good week for me too. Yeah.
the same moment of breath in taking a moment to experience nature. It's the same type of feeling I had where I was like, oh my God, I have forgotten what it feels like to be this productive and like
Yeah.
actually see traction happen. It was a funny feeling. It's funny that you can get that sense of relief from like different places, you know? Um, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, yeah. It was a good week.
Hell
I
yeah.
really enjoyed the kayaks. I think it's been a couple months since I've like done something outside. I think the last thing I did that bird watching up in Titusville with Sammy, like a little drive around the
Oh,
park
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was like a couple months ago, but
Yeah.
it was nice to like every month or two go outside and like do something. It's nice. Yeah,
Wreck
get away
time,
from this.
like a prisoner.
Yeah, it was funny. Sammy was looking at me like with the kayaks and
Yeah.
like outside interacting with people, and she was like, she told me after
Wild.
she was like, "You really look like you were out of your element." And I was like, "Yeah," I felt like I was like, "What is this new experience I forgot about?" I was like, it was funny because I really did feel like a kid outside.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I spent all of my times indoors working on shit. And so when I got outside, I was like, oh, like honestly, I was like, wow, trees. This is sick. I was like, this is so cool. And I was like, why? You know what I
So
mean?
funny.
It was just like I was just like completely out of my element, like
Yeah.
playing in the water and like bumping into kayaks
That's
and
fun.
like paddling into Sammy and then
Yeah.
racing on the. It was great. It was nice to have like a complete different direction from my
Yeah.
normal stuff. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's awesome.
I enjoyed it.
That's awesome.
But what do you have for life this week?
It's kind of like a hodgepodge of stuff. There's no like consistent like plot line with my life. I got the Lexus tinted on the day of our last podcast. And that came back really good. It was more expensive than I thought it was going to be. At the American Muscle Car Museum, they called me and they were like, "Hey, you said you wanted to do the sunroof, but we want to give you a quote before that. Excuse me, before then, it's going to be 250 to do the sunroof." And I was like, "Well, like the whole job is going to be 250 or it's an additional 250?" And they were like, "Oh no, an additional 250." And I was like, "Well, what am I at right now?" And they were like, "Oh, 500 something something." And I was like, "Holy shit, 500. That's okay." And I was like, "Okay, so with the sunroof it'd be like 700." And they were like, "So 5 plus the 700 and the 900 with tax." And I'm like, "Okay, no sunroof. Don't do that." Cuz if I pull the shade back, right? I'm letting sun in anyways. So like I don't need tint. It's fine. So just leave the sunshade off. And they were like,
Yeah.
okay. So I go to pick up the car and I had misheard them on the phone. I got 55% tint on the windows, the side windows and the rear window. And then I had a 70% film put on the front windshield, right? Um and the Firebird and Camaro, I got done at like a shitty cheap place on US 1. Of course the tint is now peeling off and it's ass, but I only paid $200. So I was like, this is a premium service. The tint is really nice. They've got a box on their front desk with a heat lamp inside, and on each face of the box is a different type of tint.
Oh, that's cool.
And so you put your hand out there and you can feel like how well it works,
Mm.
right? And so there's this special kind of tint they offer called Expel, which like you putting your hand up, it's fucking significant. It's an incredible ceramic based tint.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm expecting it to be more expensive. Okay, there's 4 doors instead of 2 doors, so maybe it's gonna be a little bit more expensive than that in the Firebird. The windows and rear window were 500 and change, and then the front windshield was 350. And all in all, after tax, it came out to just over 1,000. So I'm so glad I didn't put the sunshade tint on. So it came out to be more expensive than I intended it to be, but I am really happy with it. It does cut down on the heat a lot. And then on the same day, my sunshade that you put in the windshield when you park your car came in. I got the same brand as the ones that we use,
Yep.
Covercraft. And I'm super happy with that too. It's a perfect fit. I'm
Yeah.
consistently surprised with how well they can get those sunshades to fit the windshields.
Yeah.
Um,
They are really nice. I have one
yeah.
for the Miata that I rarely use, but when I do use that,
Yeah.
I'm thankful that I do.
Yeah. It cuts down on the heat a lot. So overall, I'm happy with it, as expensive as it was. The next thing that I have to get done to the Lexus is the dash cam. Now that the window tint is installed, I may have bucked this up because I was like, okay, so the window, I'm gonna want the window tint to go on before I install the dash cam.
Oh shit.
No, because the window tint goes on the inside of the windshield, and so does the dash cam. So now when I have the dash cam installed, it's gonna be going onto the tint. So then if I ever need the tint replaced, I'm going to have to take off the dash cam, take off the tint, put on the dash cam, and then get the tint put back on.
I didn't think about that either.
I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
So I don't have the money for a dash cam right now. I'm just going to figure it out when I figure it out. But I should get a dash cam sooner rather
You'd
than
probably
later.
find one of those little Garmin's, throw on
I
there.
want the Lexus brand.
I know, but you could find maybe used on eBay for like $50.
Yeah.
Just throw one of your SD card in there. And
Yeah,
call it a day.
yeah.
Just for now. Yeah.
Yeah, just for just in case.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I also got more watermarks at the beach house from the open house because this guy has his sprinklers running in the middle of the day on Saturday. I pulled up and I realized I can just turn the sprinkler head with my hand so it doesn't spray into the driveway. And I was like, okay, awesome. Looks like there's only sprinklers on this half of the yard because the grass is dead on this half and I can't see any sprinklers. And so I backed the Lexus down to put open house signs in the driveway, turn around, put the open house sign down, turn back around. There are sprinklers on that half of the driveway, and now it's pointed directly at the driver's side door of the Lexus, spraying that whole side of the car. And I'm like, I'm so livid. I have not been this angry since Frank and SAE. I've not been that angry. And it's spraying at the driver's side door, so I can't fucking get in without getting wet. So I get in, now I'm wet, now there's water on the inside of the car. And then I realized that the sprinkler head is rotating, so it's actually getting the whole half of that car. And there's sprinklers ahead of me, so I have to back up to get out of the spray. Well, it's rotating, so if I back up, it's also going to get on the windshield. I cannot express how angry I was in this moment. In this moment, how pissed I was. And in that moment, customers show up and pull up into the driveway and get out of their car. And they get out of the car, and I take the deepest breath I have in my entire life. And I go, "Good morning, folks. Welcome in. I'm setting up signs out here. My partner's inside. She's more than happy to show you around." Lady doesn't even look at me. She just hands me her business card. She's the guy's real estate agent. They're doing a showing. So they're not like, they aren't going to be my clients. They've already scheduled the showing. This lady doesn't fucking care about me. And I'm like, got it. And I got in the car and I just sat for, I think it was maybe 30 seconds. But I was like, okay, this is I don't know how to explain it. I've never been this angry before. I've never been this upset. And I composed myself really well. And I was like, I'm not going to let this ruin my day. I'm not going to scream. I'm not going to hit anything. I'm not going to hurt anyone. I'm just going to feel what I feel. And then I'm going to let it go. And I'm going to go do my shit. Right. And so in that moment, I was like, I'm going to impulse buy a $700 pressure washer and I'm going to store it at Sanders and we're going to clean our cars every week. And my eyes started twitching. And so I finished putting up the signs. I went out upstairs and I saw Grace, the customers had already left, and she could tell that I was upset. And so like she like didn't bother me about anything, but I was like, I'm gonna buy this fucking pressure washer. I'm gonna keep it at Sanders. And I ended up holding off on the pressure washer because I wanted to make sure that you had space with the stuff in your storage pod. And it's also a $700 pressure washer. So I just held off on it. And it rained later in the week. The sprinkler watermarks aren't as bad. I would like to get a pressure washer. It will be a tax write-off because this wouldn't have happened if I wasn't at a open house for a customer. So when I get it, and I will get it in the next few months, but I'm holding off on it right now because I feel like it's a reckless expenditure. But that really tested my fucking patience. And that'll come back later in my life update.
I've had a few of those days lately where it's just like every little thing that can go wrong does go wrong. And you're like, this is tested. These things by themselves would not be an issue, but the stack of shit, like rinse and repeat over and over again, is excruciatingly frustrating.
Do you know what's funny? In the moment, I was infuriated because of the incompetence of someone to leave their sprinklers on in the middle of the day on a Saturday. You're trying to get your household. The additional incompetence, not only of him, but of myself for not rotating the sprinkler heads to not spray into the driveway, because you could really easily just turn them, right? And I could have learned that last weekend. But also, I got sprinkler marks on my car last week. I then went through the effort of cleaning my car, but I did it while it was still bright out, so those watermarks dried on the car too. So I did not solve the problem effectively. And then I went back to the same house a week later knowing that there would be sprinklers there. And the same thing happened, right? And so it's like I didn't change anything. So what would I expect, right?
Yeah.
And so I was angry at the situation and angry at myself. But what got me to calm down was remembering that it could be worse, right?
Yeah.
I could be in Miami and the Camaro's boozy cool.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I even reframed it and I was like, oh, I could be Sander this past 2 weeks. Or he just continually gets kicked in the nuts. And then I was like, don't be like Sander. Don't get angry. Don't talk about killing yourself. Just fucking breathe.
I mean, I didn't really get
Sprinkler
angry.
marks.
I got angry at home, like by myself in the garage.
I know.
I just got pissed. But I mean, I try to not get angry around other people anymore.
No,
Like,
yeah.
if I need to get pissed off, I'll be like, I need a minute, and then I'll just go like scream into the abyss in the garage for 5 minutes, and then I'll be like, okay, I feel better.
But last week I was like, don't be so down, Sander. It's okay. And then I found myself enraged at these sprinklers. And then I was like, dude, if Sander got sprinkler marks on his car right now, he wouldn't even bat an eye. He'd just be like, I'll get a call any minute from the hospital saying my mom's dead. I'm sure of it. It's just going to get worse, right? And I was like, if I could tell Sander with all he's going through to just chill out, then I'll just chill out. So I took a deep breath.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
Have you were able to get through? I remember one time I was watching a Porsche at Autobahn. I mean, it was a bright and sunny day, but I had to get the car clean for the customer, and so I'm washing this car, and you have to work really quick in the sun because you can't let the paint get hot, and you got to dry it with a towel really quick, otherwise you get water spots.
I fucking hate using the towels. I hate it. I feel like I'm marking it up all the time.
Yeah, but clean towels, you're going through it. It's okay. But I was going through it. I got the car all dry. I moved the hose, and it's one of those ones that you squeeze the trigger on the hose. And I moved the hose, and I'm reeling it up, and I dropped the hose on the ground, the end. It hits right on the car, whole thing. So I'm like, I gotta wash it again, because it's good to put water spots. I wash it again, and my Tommy and Alex are laughing at me, and I'm washing this car again, and I'm like, at this point, I'm like kind of rushing, like I'm just trying to get it done because there's other stuff to do. And I did the same thing the second time. And I was like, are you kidding me? And so the third time I'm washing this car, it's like crystal clean now. Like this thing is clean. And so I finished washing this car. And I took that end of the hose and I carried it all the way to the backyard. And I was like, stay. I wrapped it up from there because I was so done cleaning this car for the third time. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But I understand. I understand the pain of like water spots when something is clean and you don't want it to be dirty for like maybe the next day would be nice. And it's like, and it like immediately just gets screwed up. You're like, awesome. I have the ROI on my time spent cleaning this car is 0 and I'm frustrated.
The dirt and dust on my cars don't really bother me a whole lot. There's on the rear quarter panel of the Lexus, something must have gotten caught up in the wheel or something because there's scratches on the rear quarter panel right behind the rear wheel, right?
Oh, okay.
Even that doesn't bother me a whole lot. Because I know that either it's negligible or most of it will wash off. I can get it touched up later, whatever, right? But I'm so cursed from living with my parents. My mom got one garage spot and my dad got the other garage spot. Even after I bought the Camaro, I wasn't allowed to park in the garage. I'd always have to park on the driveway or on the side of the road, right? And the car would get hit with sprinklers 5 nights a week.
Yeah.
And so I was constantly cleaning my car. Eventually, I bought a car cover to put on my car every night because I didn't want to deal with sprinkler marks, right?
Yeah.
And the reason I'm so scarred is because the Firebird had sprinkler marks so bad, even with me cleaning them, that eventually, when I was deep cleaning the car to get it ready to sell, it had etched into the paint and the windows.
Yeah.
Because it's acidic. It's sulfuric water. It's acidic. And so it ate into the etch. And I was like, dude, I have like a leopard print Firebird now because of all these fucking sprinkler marks. And so when I saw those sprinkler marks on the Lexus, like I saw red because I was like, this is a brand new fucking car. It's in great condition. I was so upset. Yeah. I was so upset. And so then when I cleaned the car, I have learned to clean the car in the evening because the watermarks won't evaporate. You can drive on the highway and it's essentially like going through the car wash where it like blows all the water out, right? So it's like clean your car, go $120 on the highway, you're good to go, right?
Yeah.
But this day, with just the way the timing worked out, I cleaned it at like 6 p.m. and it was still bright outside. And like what's worse is that it didn't just dry the watermarks because I got in the car and got on the highway. But as the water started to stream down the car, then it dried. So now I've got piss stains all along the side of the car too. And then it rained the next day and all that went away. And I was like, you know what? That's okay. It's fine that I didn't wash the car at the right time because I was just using hose water. And so like it dried up. The rainwater washed it off, but the sprinkler water is pissing me off. So whatever.
Yep.
And then later on in the week, actually, I forget what had happened. Um, but Grace had a moment with me where she was like, "Hey, I just have to talk to you about something. I've noticed we've had to spend more time together because the Camaro isn't working, right?" That's a fun update too. I made a post on the Camaro forums that I
I was
always
gonna ask you about it.
because there's a bunch of old heads on those forums that know like everything inside and out. And so I made a post. They've always answered my questions, no problem. And I was like, "Hey, does anybody, know what's going on with this car?" And one of the guys, his username is engineer. Great guy. His name's Fred. He's been on the forums for a long time. He messaged me after 2 days, which is a long response time for this forum. And he was like, "Yep, never heard of this issue. Not really sure how to fix it. Maybe check the codes or something. By the way, this forum is pretty dead these days, so don't expect a response anytime soon. You're on your own." So I haven't been using the Camaro for like a week. Like Grace and I have been driving around in the Lexus a lot, and so she leveled me and she was like, "Hey, I'm spending more time with you, and I'm noticing that when you're frustrated about something, I try to not say anything because I don't want to make things worse." And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm not frustrated with you. I'm just frustrated with the situation." She's like, "I know. I just don't want to make it worse." I'm like, "Okay, I understand that." And I was like, "I want you to know I'm not getting more frustrated recently. You're just spending more time with me. This is just who I am." And she was like, "That's fine. Can we just find a way, to where I'm not afraid to talk?" And I was like, "You should never be afraid to talk. I've never snapped at you. I've never yelled at you or anything like that." And she was like, "I know. I just like," she has had previous relationships
Mm,
where if the guy is frustrated and she says something, they will snap.
yeah.
So she's like, "I know you won't do that, but I still feel uncomfortable." And I was like, "Okay, let's find a system to improve this, right?" And so she was like, specifically, the sprinklers were really concerning because I've never seen you that upset. I was like, I haven't been that upset in a long time. But since then, I've been making it a note to use some of the Hormozy principles of like the um the scope of the veteran, where it's like, what if this happened every day for the rest of your life?
Yeah, yeah.
Or the insignificance scale, where it's like, I'm a tiny speck in the whole universe, and we could all be incinerated in seconds by the sun, and time will forget us, right? I've been using those things to try to calm down in times of frustration. And it's been working. I've been getting better at it. But I thought that that particular note was of interest to me, and I bookmarked that in my head. Because A, it shows that we work through problems really well together, right? We worked through a similar problem earlier in the week. When we went to the Melbourne Beach Pier for the Melbourne Beach video, she was like, "We should come back at sunset and take photos." And I was like, "Sounds good." And she was like, "Can we do that this week?" And I was like, "Sure, Thursday." And she was like, "Well, Thursday we're doing the showings. If we have to write an offer, we won't have time." And I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." Because if it goes well and we have to write an offer, we'll be happy to cancel photos. And if it goes poorly and we don't have an offer to write, then we can go do photos and it's not gonna be a big deal. And she was like, "Well, photos." So that passed. We had to write the offer. We canceled the photos. She was like, "Now when are we going to go do them?" And I was like, "I don't know." And she was like, "It feels like you scheduled them on a day that you knew they wouldn't happen." And I was like, "No, I was hedging my bets on the showings not going well because I don't mind doing the photos." And she was like, "I feel like you don't want to do the photos." And I was like, "I'll be honest, I don't want to do the photos. I don't care." But there are things that I don't want to do and I'm unwilling to do. And there are things that I don't want to do and I am willing to do for you, right? And usually my willingness to do it is directly correlated to the importance level that it is for you. And she was like, "Okay." And I was like, "So here's what she got frustrated because she was like, it feels like you're just putting it off." And I was like, "Okay, slow down. Not getting frustrated. Practicing, not getting frustrated, right?" I was like, "Here's what we're going to do. The hang up here is that I will schedule things to hedge bets to make things that I don't want to do more tolerable for me, right? I don't want to do that over things that are important to you. So I need to know when things are important to you and when they're not. So moving forward, I need you to more clearly dictate to me when something is important to you so that I don't schedule over like that and like try to make it go away in my own brain. Because like we're still going to do it. I just need to make it more digestible for my own brain. So moving forward, I will be more attentive to not schedule things over on you. And you need to let me know when things are more important." She was like, "Sounds good." And like we worked through that problem in like 10 minutes, no issue. And I wasn't frustrated. But I find that relevant because I'm in the promotion cycle at work right now. So I'm consistently having to fill out paperwork to try to get this promotion. They keep asking you questions. And in one of them, you have to write out your goals, right? And most people are probably like, "I want to be a director by 40 or whatever," right? I didn't write any of that. All of mine are philosophical. Mine is like, define the difference between motivation and discipline and then apply it in the workplace to get, artifacts completed on time. So, stuff like that, right? And in one of as I was writing it, um, all of my write-ups are like super long, way longer than they should be for most people. But in one of them, I was like, people say that they love personal growth, but they can never tell you how they fucking do it, right? Like they say that they're working on themselves, and then you ask them what they're working on right now, and they don't have an answer because they're not, right?
Yeah.
They think that continuing to live and not fucking up majorly is personal growth, but that's not the case at all. And so, as a result of all that this week, I wanted to record in the podcast that what I'm working on right now is getting frustrated less. And I think it's working.
I have something to add to the frustration
Add
boat, if you don't mind.
Add to it.
Yesterday after kayaking, I was like, I want to stop at Wawa and get mac and cheese.
Okay.
And because I love the Wawa mac and cheese, I got a bunch of different stuff on it. Create your own bowl. That's so I fill my shit. And so we're there, and it's a little bit busy. And so we're there for about 15 minutes, and then I start to hear the guy behind the counter go, "Hey, we're out of mac and cheese. Sorry, we're not going to be able to." And I wanted this mac and cheese. It was like 1 a.m. I was like, I want my mac and cheese. So I was waiting there, and I was like, maybe they'll have mac and cheese for me. Like when I get there. And then I keep hearing him say it to all the people who ordered mac and cheese. And then I turn to Sammy and I'm like, this is why people commit felonies. It's because when they come to Wawa at 1 a.m, they want mac and cheese. They want mac and cheese. It was like, it's going to be okay. They're going to have mac and cheese. And I'm like, nope, it's all fucked. You're not going to have mac and cheese. It's all fucked. No mac and cheese. And she was like, it's okay. I'll ask them. It's like, and I was like, it's all fucked. That's it. It's over. She goes up and she's like, do you guys have mac and cheese right now? And he's like, no. And she's like, will you have mac and cheese? And he's like, in 10 minutes. And I'm like, this is sad. And she's like, why don't you go home? I'll bring you your mac and cheese. And I was just like, nah, like, I feel bad. Like, I'll wait for you. And she was like, no. Like you go home, you shower. I'll bring you your mac and cheese, and then I can shower after you. And I was like, yeah, like, I don't really want to commit a hate crime, so I'll probably go home. And she was like, no, have your mac and cheese. Don't worry. And I was like, okay, I'll go home. Yeah. So I just went home. But I was like, I wasn't like super frustrated, but I was coming off of like multiple weeks of like just total shit. Yeah. And like this week was pretty good, and the kayaking was awesome. And then I was like, I just want to ride this one day out. I was like, you don't have mac and cheese. I was like, damn it. And so I was just like sad and frustrated. I was like, this is it. This is over. I was like, the world is just crumbling because I don't have mac and cheese. She was like, just go home. I'll bring it to you. And I was like, perfect. And I took a shower and I was chilling. And then after I was done with my shower, she brought me my mac and cheese. And I was like, mac and cheese. And I had a great evening. But it was like a funny moment of like, the world is ending. My mac and cheese is not here.
Yeah. It's funny that you guys staggered the showers, because having to split a car with Grace, it's been like, how do we accomplish chores and also get the work done that we need to do, right?
Yeah.
And so we've gotten an awesome habit where Grace drops me off at POW for a play date with my laptop, and then she'll go do groceries and like go home and shower, and like takes care of her shit. And then she comes picks me up like 8 hours later, and she's like, how was your play date? I'm like, I got all this shit done. Look at this. And like, then I shower in 15 minutes and go to sleep. But she's been really awesome with helping with groceries and stuff like that.
Yeah. Sammy's gotten really good about letting me know in advance about stuff, which I super duper appreciate. And I've gotten a little bit better about trying to add things in that are spontaneous, but short. And so if she's because she'll have moments where she's like, Sandra, I saw this thing on TikTok and I want to go do it. And I'm like, okay, but like when? And she's like, right now. And I'm like, okay, like we can't go to Tampa to go to this park and play volleyball, but we could go to the beach for 20 minutes and play volleyball there.
There you go.
And so it's like, then we could do that instead.
Right.
And then we get to the beach and she's like, look, there's another group. Do you want to play with them? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
And she's like, please. And I'm like, look, we'll play volleyball together. We're going to suck because neither of us know how to play volleyball. We'll play volleyball together for 20 minutes and have fun. You'll be tired. Trust me. You don't want to be here for an hour. Yeah. Trust me. We'll do this for 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll go home, and then we could schedule something with friends on a different date. We could do volleyball together, planned. Yeah. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, perfect. Well, like with the kayak thing, originally she was like, I want to do the volleyball thing today instead of the kayak thing. I was like, okay, cool. And then she was like, actually, I want to do this other thing. And I was in the middle of like working on ads, and I was like, great.
Whatever you want to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And then she came back to me. She was like, I actually want to do kayaking. And I was like, great. Awesome. And she was like, do you have a preference of what we do? And I was like, not really. And she was like, well, like, are you okay with going kayaking? And I'm like, I am okay with any 4-hour chunk of time
It's a block.
doing
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
Like you have 4 hours. You could put whatever you want in those 4 hours.
Yeah.
As long as this chunk of time I have dedicated to date and fun.
Yeah.
So whatever you want to do, I'm cool with.
Yeah.
And then she came back into the room after that, and she was like, "Do you think?" And I turned around, and I was just like, it's just like, bruh. And she like stopped halfway through your sentence, and she was like, "Got it." And she just planned the whole thing, and she was like, I got it all set up, and I was like, awesome.
Yeah.
And then we just went into the kayaks.
That works well, though.
This is perfect.
That works
Yeah.
well, though.
Yeah, it worked super well.
Time,
Great.
do whatever she wants to do.
Yeah, and I had a ton of fun. We all had fun. It was enjoyable. It was planned out. It was easygoing. It was relaxed. It was perfect. It was a great
Now,
date.
a word of a word of advice, if you'll have it. Don't schedule that fun thing on the same day that you might have to write a contract, because then, although it's great for you, because you're like, oh, I can write a contract, and then I like don't mind canceling. They mind if you cancel.
Right.
It's the lesson I learned.
Yeah.
But I told her, she was like, there's 2 things I want to do this week. I want to take photos, which I fucked up. And I want Anna and Ralph, her sister and her fiance, got cows at their property, because if you have cows on ag land, you don't have to pay property taxes. So they're tax cows. And she was like, let's go meet the cows. And I was like, we have to schedule it. She was like, are you going to schedule it on a day you're going to cancel again? And I was like, maybe. So after we had the don't schedule things over conversation, I was like, okay, Sunday night at like 5 or 6 o'clock, we'll go see the cows. Like, we'll go hang out. We're not getting dinner or anything. We'll come home. So
They should get a little train set with model cows and just have the trains move around with the cows on the train, like on a track. You know what I'm saying?
I have no idea what you're saying.
Like, you know, when you go to
Like
like
model
you
train.
know when you go to Disney and they're like fake animals that move around on like a track.
Like a train?
This might be like more pictured in my head, but like, yeah, it's like a model
Okay.
train, but instead of a model train, it's a model cow, and it goes on a track. Or you ever seen Home Alone,
Yes.
where he's got the people dancing through the living room and he's got people propped up,
Yes.
stencils going on a
That
train
with
track like
cows?
this? But like, do that with cows, so you don't have to have like real cows, but you can still have like
Oh, no.
cows.
The benefit of having real cows is that they're soft and they're
They are.
friendly.
Cows are cool.
I'd like to take Simba, our cat, to meet the cows, but
Yeah, my grandparents used to have Holstein, or not Holsteins. Oh man, I forgot the name. I'll think of it.
Gotcha.
But, really like long hair cows, really beautiful.
oh yeah,
Beautiful cows.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Oh yeah. If Sammy wants,
One of them ran my cousin into a pile of shit. It was pretty funny. Yeah,
if Sammy ever wants to schedule a day where you go see the cows, you know where to go. I'll go together.
yeah.
Okay, continuing my life update. There's not much more or less. Ozzy Osbourne died this week.
Yes.
I was very
In
sad.
peace.
Yeah, right.
And Hulk Hogan died.
And Hulk Hogan. So both very sad. I had an interesting story from Ozzy Osbourne. You know, Youngblood is a younger like metal artist that was close with Ozzy Osbourne.
Mhm.
And he did a performance at Ozzy Osbourne's last concert. He sang Black Sabbath's "I'm Going Through Changes," and it's like one of the greatest musical performances I think I've ever seen. It's up there with like, you know, the Howard Stern 1996 birthday recording with the John Popper hook.
Maybe.
It's like one
I mean, I have
fucking
to listen to
it's
it.
one YouTube video that I love. I don't like the song. I don't like the recorded version of the song. I only like this live version of the song, right?
Mhm.
It's that for me, right?
Yeah.
I love this tribute that he gave. But there was an interesting, after Ozzy Osbourne died, Youngblood shared an interesting moment that he had with Ozzy, where they were talking to each other because they're very similar. After they met for the first time, Ozzy Osbourne said to his wife, he was like, I just met me. And in this visit, Ozzy told Youngblood, he was like, never apologize for anything. They'll understand you later. And he doesn't get a whole lot of hate anymore for eating the heads of doves and bats, right? It's a pretty good representation of that, right? Never apologize. They'll understand you later. It doesn't work in every like aspect.
Yeah.
But I thought it was an interesting note, especially
It's
if that's your
interesting.
personality and that's your brand, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting. That's pretty much my life update.
Cool.
Yeah. We have an actual podcast today.
We do.
So segment 1 is on the mental and logistical hurdles of starting a business and which is more difficult to overcome. This topic is a mixed bag, and I think the answer is influenced by 2 variables: who the person is and what the circumstances are that they're facing. Someone with mental fortitude could face the same logistical roadblocks as someone who struggles under pressure and perform better. Inversely, someone who's skilled in overcoming logistical challenges may only be able to do so under perfect conditions while someone with lesser skill is able to operate under a wider range of operating conditions. And sometimes they're equally insurmountable or equally accomplishable. In either extreme, or everywhere in between, we have control over both variables. I believe that mental fortitude can be learned and logistical challenges can be streamlined. And generally speaking, I think mental toughness comes as a prerequisite to overcoming logistical challenges, meaning someone lacking mental discipline will struggle more with logistical hurdles than someone who's mentally sound but struggles with logistical problems.
Could you say the last sentence again?
Generally speaking, I think mental toughness comes as a prerequisite to overcoming logistical challenges, meaning someone lacking mental discipline will struggle more with logistical hurdles than someone who's mentally sound but struggles with logistical problems.
Gotcha. I think I'm struggling a little bit with it, but I think I agree with the I think I'm just struggling to understand a little bit.
So the TLDR is, if you have mental toughness, you can overcome logistical challenges more efficiently, regardless of how difficult the logistical challenges are, right? So think of like a young
That I agree with.
yeah, like a young entrepreneur who it's the whole Hormozy thing where it's like entrepreneurship is mostly about like heart and not giving up and not about actual technical ability, right? Versus a senior systems engineer who can only work under like no timeline, no deadline, no, like they have to be in like a quiet room to get the work done to overcome those logistical challenges, right? Because if you apply any amount of pressure, like, oh, you're working on the Challenger and the government wants to launch on this date, and you have to figure out if the seal rings are going to blow up or not, right? You can't work under that stress. But someone who is more mentally strong can overcome the same really complicated logistical challenge easier because they can work under any environment. That's kind of my
hmm
my
hmm
take here.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'd agree with that. I definitely in my analysis I focused more on the mental aspect being the main burden because I feel as though that's the center point because there are people who live in very poor countries who have no money, who have little to no resources besides what they can do with their hands, but they still manage to find a way to, maybe not become $100 million empire, but still build themselves up, build a business, live independently, and grow, right? And so I think in any business there are logistical hurdles you have to get through. But I think that if you have examples of people who start from literally nothing and people who start with, almost everything at their disposal, there are still people in each of those categories that make it and do not make it.
Right.
Right. And so for me, the connection point is mentally, are you willing to stick through it? And can you push mentally through this process, even if you will hit logistical, barriers and blocks?
I think we're saying the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which it can also be said to mean the overcoming the hurdles can be equally challenging, but the logistical hurdle doesn't really impact the mental hurdle, but the mental hurdle impacts the logistical hurdle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think yeah, if you have, yeah, right. And this gets to your point. Like if you have a strong mental framework, that's your foundation.
So I've got a really good analogy here.
Yeah.
Because I was struggling to make this sensical, right? Mental struggles, or the mental hurdle, represents efficiency and ability, while logistical struggles represent situational challenges. So mental acuity is your race car, and logistical struggles is the racetrack. Some tracks are more challenging than others, but faster race cars will always outperform the slower ones, right?
Yeah.
So you can build a faster race car or build mental fortitude, or you can learn the minutia of the track and like learn to modify logistical systems, right?
Yeah.
But no matter how skilled a driver in a Miata is, an inexperienced person in a Koenigsegg will always win, barring extraneous circumstances.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah. That's a good analogy
take on it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think for a lot of people, their mind and themselves are their worst enemy. Like people will talk themselves out of trying to do something far before anyone else will.
hmm
Um, and I actually think that I'm kind of coming up with this aspect of it on the fly a little bit, but it would be interesting to see if there's a link to that because as society has progressed, it seems as though we've become more and more supportive, right? Like if you were in the 19 teens, like early 1900s, and you were a kid from a family of metal workers, and you told your parents, "Hey, I want to go race cars and build cars." That was Enzo Ferrari's story, and he didn't get very much support from his family, right? But today, like if you grow up in a relatively modern family, like if you come from a background where you have, let's say a 9 to 5 structure would be like a kind of good parallel to that. Your parents work a relatively, medium wage 9 to 5, and you want to start your own business, right? Um, there is some pressure from families, but I feel as though there's also been a societal push to kind of be like, well, like, like try your own thing, figure it out, like you'll be fine. Whereas like I think before, like if I look at my grandparents, like they don't have that same style approach.
Yeah.
They're like, no, like this is what you're doing. Like
Right.
fall in line, right? Kind of more of that style. And so it would be interesting to see a comparison of like mental toughness, if mental toughness has any link to that change in societal pattern over the years in terms of like raising kids and family structure and stuff like that. Because I still see a lot of people who have a lot of mental weakness when it comes to going for something. And so it'd be interesting to see if there's a parallel between like mental weakness and how much people are able to talk themselves out of something today versus back in the day, 100 years ago or whatever. But
So maybe like, you can have not enough people supporting you because if growing up all you've ever been taught is it's impossible to become an astronaut, you can't do it. It'll never happen. And every single person in your life, including astronauts, say, "Listen, Timmy, you're not going to make it," right? I think that you have that's a far extreme on one end, and then on the opposite extreme is people lying to you saying you can do it no matter what, right?
you're right.
And I feel like back in the day, there were way too many people saying it's impossible, you can't do it. Not it's unlikely or it's challenging or you have to make
Yeah.
sacrifices to get it done, but just that it's not possible. And today you see a lot of the opposite of people like, geeing you up
Yeah.
when they shouldn't.
If you just coast through life, you can do anything.
Yeah.
Almost like that kind of peril.
Right.
Whereas like I think it probably ties back to Hormozy's principle of winners win. You know what I mean? Like winners will succeed.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of people get stuck on the mental side of it, fearing judgment from others and creating realities in their head that they don't even know are true or not. Like
Mm.
they'll have this idea for a business and then they'll be like, well, so and so won't like that idea, or this person will think this about it, or like, oh, my parents won't like that, or oh, my friends may not think that's cool, or like, what about this, what about that? Like they'll talk themselves out of it before they even try it.
Mhm.
um and so I find that pretty interesting, and I find interesting the perspective of people will try something for like 2 or 3 hours.
Yeah.
And then after those 2 or 3 hours, they'll be like, oh, like I hit this and this, and like this definitely doesn't work because of X, Y, and Z. And they'll talk themselves out of something after like trying for 2 or 3 hours. And in my mind, I'm like, you tried this for 2 to 3 hours. In what world do you expect it to work for you in 2 to 3 hours when it takes most people 2 to 3 years?
Right.
Like, in what world does that sound reasonable to you?
Right.
Um, and so I think largely mental toughness is like the primary stake at whether you win or you lose in the game of business, or whether you choose to start a business or not. I think logistically, the more volume you do and the tougher you are mentally, and if you continue to try, you will make it, despite logistical burdens that you might face.
Yeah. Well, and so I have as I wrote this out, I was like, okay, if I believe that you can improve your mental fortitude and improve your logistical capacity, how would I operationalize each? Like if I had to, if you gave me a kid and was like, make this kid over 40 years into someone who can do both, right?
You know,
I have for mental fortitude, do hard things until you can't, do them again for longer, increase the difficulty, and then repeat. How to conquer logistical challenges: define the problem or the symptom, identify the constraints, alleviate the constraints, measure the delta to see if it actually worked, and then repeat, right?
Yeah.
That's it. It's just those two things. But when you compare the two steps, one of them is looking at something externally and deciding what to do about it. And the other one is doing hard things, which you don't want to do. That's what makes them hard. And then doing them again and doing them for more, right? And I feel that that's a more challenging, that's the mental fortitude is more challenging than the logistical challenges because it's doing things you don't want to do. And logistical challenges you might not have a problem with, right?
Mhm.
So it's easier to accomplish those because it doesn't hurt, right? It's just solving problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. I didn't really have much else before going into segment 2.
I've
It's
got
kind of up
segment.
to you.
Yeah, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
So segment 2 is on I have it redefined as consistency versus variability for my write-up.
Sure.
The full topic we wrote is the outline of your goals and how staying consistent versus trying new things helps or hurts your likelihood of success. And that was a bit long for a segment title, so I just shortened it up into consistency
enough.
versus variability. But I have it broken down here into what my goal is, and then comparing the results and scope of consistency and variability. So here's a quick example, right? For me, I've got it broken down into 4 variable sets, right? So the goal, we'll pick replacing engineering income with real estate income, right? That's my goal for 2025. So I've got consistency and variability on the macro scale and the micro scale, right? So consistency on the macro scale is working nights and weekends. Consistency on the micro scale is spending all of my time doing open houses and no other lead gen, only open houses. Variability on the macro scope is working odd numbered months on alternating lunar cycles. And then variability on the microscope is trying a new advertising method every week. So one week is open house, the next week is cold calls, and then the next week is door to door, and then the next week is Facebook ads, right?
Mhm.
All over the place. So breaking down these variables, macro results for consistency versus variability. Obviously, working every hour on Not at Northrop Grumman is more likely to result in the accomplishment of my goals than any other schedule. Because if I'm only working odd number of months, I'm getting less volume in, right?
Yeah.
For micro results, it's a little bit more difficult to interpret because work volume is easier to predict than work method. And Alex Ramosi has a good quote that isn't directly applicable, but I like to use a portion of it. So the quote is, "Many things are worth doing hard, but not all hard things are worth doing. You can cut a lawn with scissors, but it doesn't mean it's better than paying someone with a lawnmower." So the quote doesn't really relate, but I like the idea of the lawnmower. And so I'm going to use that here. If you have to mow a lawn every day, that's volume, you will mow lots of lawns and you will get better at it because you're doing it every day.
Yeah.
The work method is what changes. If you're going to mow a lawn every day, you could cut it with scissors consistently every day for the rest of your life. You've got consistency and you've got volume, but you don't have the right method or direction. So you can have too much consistency there. Inversely, you can have too much variability. If day 1, you try scissors, day 2, you try lighting the yard on fire, day 3, you try a chemical spray that kills the grass over time, day 4, you try using the rotors of an inverted helicopter, and so on. Like, you'll never really understand what's going to work or why, even if you do find something that works. So as far as work method goes, on the micro scale variability versus consistency, we've established that you can have too much consistency or blinders too thick that you can't really tell where you are. And we've established you can have too much variability or so much fucking chaos that you can't clearly define any correlations, right? So there's got to be a balance in there somewhere. And I have a way to find the balance, but I want to stop and let you talk
So
because I'm a generous podcast host.
I think that the main thing that I wanted to present in it from my side for this segment is that I think a lot of people jump from thing to thing because they try to find something that they're passionate about. That they're like, man, this checks every box and more of everything I wanted out of life and work ever. And they just like they have a picture in their head of this vision of this thing will check all the boxes, and this will just be my perfect work-life utopia.
I'm going to build a bakery and sell donuts because I love donuts.
Yeah, right. And that's a very nice dream. And that's about, in my opinion, at least where it sits. Because any field you go into will have aspects of it that you like and that you don't like. And I think the fundamental foundation is, what are you good at and what are you bad at, right? If I were to start a business that,
If you're
let's
good
say
at
I would
doing
be
donuts.
an airplane cleaning business,
Okay.
right? I clean private jets for wealthy people. Okay. I know no wealthy people. I know many poor people. That doesn't help me. I don't know anyone who has a jet. I know nothing about the maintenance protocol for cleaning a jet. I have no idea how often they need to be serviced. I have no connections to airports. I have no funding in order to get equipment to get into these people. I have no places I can go to meet these people because I have no money to go to them, right? I have a whole bunch of logistical hurdles.
I see why you didn't go with the baking example, because we had a baking company.
Yeah. So I was, that would be a probably a poor choice, right?
But you're passionate
But
about
I'm so passionate about cleaning airplanes. I just want to make, Grant Cardone's jet airliner spotless.
That's right.
That's my number one dream in life,
That's right.
right? And so I think that if that was my number one dream and passion in life, and I had all of these logistical hurdles, I think it would probably be a pretty stupid choice for me to pursue that, right? But if I were to say, hey, I'm going to start a drop shipping business because I've tried it before, I have evidence that it works, I have connections to mentors who have done it before and made it work for them, I have finances in order to do so because it's within my budget, pending that I can stretch and work around it. I have a lot of experience in video editing. I have a lot of experience with AI programs. I work with people relatively well, and I think I can analyze psychology at least to enough of an extent to where I can understand a market by reading Reddit posts or other informational forums online. And so I have a bunch of things going for me, right? And I have a bunch of people I know surrounding me. And maybe my number one passion in life isn't selling kids' toys online, right? But I have a lot of logistical things that are going for me, which helps me, given that I have the mental fortitude in order to push through the hurdles that I will inevitably encounter. But at least I can check some things off the box initially to make the climb a little bit less hard, or at least from my initial perspective, less hard.
Right.
Right. And so I think that, looking at these kinds of things logistically when you're going through the process of trying to choose a business is important. I'm sure you could talk a similar kind of thing with real estate, right? Whereas like there are certain foundational principles to why you went into real estate, right? And my number one passion in life is I want to race cars. I want to have cool cars. I want to work on cars. I want to have fun. I want to share that experience with other people. I want to go racing on racetracks. I want to watch other people race too and be involved.
Right.
Like that's like big umbrella goal, right?
Right.
Now, if I were to go and spend every single credit card I could possibly find to go and race and do everything I possibly could, there is a chance that I could get there by some grace of someone's generosity along the way to sponsor me. It is possible. Is it likely? No. And so I choose a path that's more likely, more feasible, that will still inevitably have logistical hurdles, but maybe is not my number one passion in life, because your number one passion in life doesn't have to be the thing that you're necessarily good at in order to generate income to do the things you really love in life. And so that's kind of what I wanted to bring from my side to the table here, because I think a lot of people get caught up in struggling with the mental side of things because they convince themselves of that other people's perspective is more important than their own. And then once they finally muster up the courage to bring an idea to someone else, they've only mustered up the courage to do so because it comes directly from a passion place rather than a logistical analysis place.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they have all of this mental cloudiness, they have all of this doubt, and then they go and pursue their passion and they get a grain of inspiration because it is their passion, but then they encounter all of these logistical hurdles because they're not really that great at developing a business out of what they love the most in life. And that's okay. Like, I'm not gonna be the world's best airplane cleaner if that was my number one passion in life.
Yeah.
Like I could, right? But there are other avenues that seem much more reasonable, much more feasible, much more logical for me to go through that still get me an end result on on my passion. Let's say my passion was cleaning airplanes, but I'm really good at drop shipping. If I develop a drop shipping company and I make a good amount of money, then I can go to these networking events and figure out how to clean people's planes if that's my number one passion in life, right? But it's like I just want to bring to the table this idea of like you have to pursue your passion as like your number one passion is your business. I I really push back against that, for those reasons. But
It's interesting because it depends on the passion. And what's
yes,
cool
and it does.
what's
It does.
cool about this specific example is that racing cars and hanging out on yachts doesn't generate money. So that making that passion into a business is probably going to end up being a pretty shit business, right?
Even the big race car companies, they talk about it, they're like, well, this is a losing business.
Yeah, you
Like-
get
like,
into racing.
Every
to
single
lose a
person
fortune.
in racing it loses money.
Yeah.
Even the big companies lose money. Like
Right.
outside of like maybe Formula One, but that's like 10 teams in the world that actually still probably consistently lose money.
Yeah.
Right? It's like racing. Racing was not created to make money. Racing is a financially losing sport, and you do it because you love it. And every single person I have ever met, regardless of how big they are, loses money doing it and only does it because they love it. Every single person. I have never, out of the hundreds of people in racing I have talked to, I have never met a single person who's been like, actually, I make good money doing this. I like it. I like it because it's financially
Savvy.
well off for me.
Yeah.
Not a single one. Every single person is like, I'm in crippling debt. I don't know how to pay for this, but dude, the thrill of that one corner 3 weekends ago keeps me going.
Exactly.
Every single person.
Exactly. Right. So there's people that have passions that are not profitable, and there's people that have passions that could be profitable. So like Forrest Gump loved mowing lawns.
Yeah.
His favorite thing to do was mow a lawn, right? You could make a really awesome company mowing lawns, and then you could scale that company to hire employees to go mow more lawns so that you can have more lawns mowed under your belt, right?
Yeah.
And that's a profitable business. And that's a great example of where following your passion and making a business out of it is a good idea. But I think that people are really not in tune with what profitable businesses look like, and they get misconstrued. So like, I can't tell you how many bakeries I've heard of where people open a bakery because they love to bake and they love to share their food with other people,
Yeah.
but they don't realize that the way that the business is built isn't profitable. You got to change a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of a lot of concessions that you have to make. You might not be profitable. It might not be a good business, even though it is passion, right? And other bakeries are profitable, right?
Yep.
But they take a lot of the passion out of it because it becomes a numbers game, and then your passion gets influenced, right?
Yep.
It's like when I made the YouTube channel to review Lego sets. I was like, I don't enjoy building the Legos anymore because I have to make a video every time I fucking build one, and I can't just like zone out of the
If
Lego.
I had to make a video for everything I did on the Miata, I would have quit.
Exactly.
I don't know, like if I had to make a video of me pulling that harmonic damper on and off 3 times, I would have been like, fuck this. These YouTube people can go screw themselves. I'm just gonna figure this out.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
So a great example of where I tried to take a passion and then make it into a profitable business, and realize that not only is it unlikely to become a profitable business, although there are Lego YouTubers out there that do well, but regardless of how profitable it is, it's kind of taking the passion away, and I'm not willing to lose that. So I stopped it, right?
Yeah.
There's an interesting Hormozy bit that is on one of the Chris Williamson podcasts where he said that he was somewhere and he saw a yacht, and the name of the yacht was "Don't Analyze Your Pleasures." Right? And I love that specific quote because you can apply it really well into finding out what business you want to start. Because if you take pleasure in something like racing, you have to analyze it to make it into a business, right? And the whole point of a pleasure is that you don't have to think about it, you just like it, right?
Yeah.
And so by thinking about it too much, you kind of ruin it sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Racing may be a little different, but if you look at it as a numbers game, right, you might ruin it.
Financial numbers game.
Yeah,
For sure.
Exactly.
If you're going on the track thinking about how you're gonna, afford your next set of tires by creating a TikTok video, you're probably not gonna have a very good time.
Exactly, right? There's a little hack here that I think we might have stumbled upon that I think more people experience but don't talk about, which is that I can align any business with my pleasure because I take pleasure in working hard. And so you can kind of take any business. You can take the bakery or the airplane business or anything really. I mean, Legos or real estate, stuff that I enjoy, right? And then make a business out of it because I like to work hard, right? Now the Lego thing didn't really work out because I was too passionate about it. But that's one of your pleasures more so than like a passion, right?
Mhm.
But if you can align something that you're passionate about with your business, that's cool, but it shouldn't be a prerequisite. You can kind of game the system if you're passionate about working, because then you can apply that to any business. Um, in terms of consistency in picking a business, I feel it's super common that people will pick a business because they like it, like baking, like a donut shop, right? And then when the donut shop doesn't work out, they're like, okay, I gotta make a hard left into a totally different business style that I'm not passionate about at all, and I'm just gonna do it even though I hate it, and I'm gonna be a helicopter mechanic. And then they don't do well being a helicopter mechanic because they're not good being a helicopter mechanic. And so they're like, fuck it. I've got a buddy who day trades and he makes a ton of money, so I'm going to go do day trading. And then you go start putting money into the market without really realizing what you're doing, and you lose a bunch of money there because you're skipping around so many times, right? In hindsight, in writing this segment, I feel that I should have written my macro scope section on switching between businesses every time you run into a hurdle. But instead, I thought on the macro scale, the largest scale I can get is changes within real estate. Because, I mean, this is applied to me, right? But without even realizing it, I have already committed to real estate as the business that I'm going to pursue.
Yeah.
And so I hadn't even zoomed out enough to consider that macro variability is skipping between businesses, not skipping between working consistency within my business.
Right.
So I accidentally have already overcommitted to my field so much that I didn't even consider that, a good example would have been jumping between fields like that, right?
Yeah,
I thought it was interesting.
I think a lot of people, for me, it's the same thing. Like the macro scale ends at the drop shipping framework.
Right.
Like it doesn't go beyond that. Like unless you ask me about like where do you want to be at in 5 or 10 years,
Sure.
and then I'm like, well, probably drop shipping, but racing more.
Yeah.
But it's like it's still in the same framework, right? But I think for a lot of people, the macro scale is like, well, I could do a 9 to 5, or I could start a bakery, or I could do a flower shop, or I could do day trading, or like this, and like, it's just I wanted to kind of address that in a way,
Right.
because I think a lot of people get caught up in that.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think it's a good point to make, and one that I hadn't even considered because I had been writing it from my own perspective with my own blinders. And I think it's good that I have already learned that lesson, because
Yeah.
switching businesses hasn't even fucking occurred to me yet. Even though I've only made one real estate sale per se, right? So like, even though it's been like 6 or 8 months of work now with minimal
Yeah.
reward, it doesn't matter because like I'm so committed to it. Um, so moving back to my work method, right? Not work volume, because volume's always good. You can predict the outcome of volume pretty easily, right? But work method, there's a balance somewhere between too much consistency and too much variability, right? And locating that balance, I think, is the key to growth. Knowing when to pivot on the micro scale here, right? So now that we're talking about method, right? And Google's resource allocation framework is the first thing that came to mind for me. That's the 70-20-10 split. So when Google is looking at allocating their monetary resources to their programs, 70% of it goes to core business or stuff that already works. 20% goes to related projects, so small deviation from what works. And then 10% goes to experimental initiatives or like total moonshots, like fucking reckless gambling, right? Which is what I'll be doing when I bet on Max Verstappen to win the 2025 Formula One World Champion. It's going to be a moonshot. Right now, if you put $10 on Max Verstappen, you get $350 out on all market.
Wow.
I should not bet. But if it works for Google, a $2.3 trillion business, it's probably got some legs to it, right? So I'm going to be applying this framework in real estate in my example here. I don't actually know if I'm going to do it in real life, but for method of example, right? Consistency in the macro scale. All I do outside Northrop is real estate. Cool. I've got that locked in. Variability in the macro sense, there is none. I'm not switching businesses. I'm not taking on side hustles or anything like that. It's just real estate outside of work, right? Consistency on the micro scale. I started doing open houses a few weeks after joining Blue Marlin. I started Blue Marlin. I laid the groundwork on like making social media profiles and getting on board and stuff. And then I did my first open house. And every weekend from then on, I've done an open house, at least one. So I've done 8 open houses in a row, 8 open house weekends in a row, right? Haven't skipped. That's consistency. I've also been posting consistently on social media. I made a goal of this a little while ago to post more, right? So here's the breakdown. I went through real quick and looked at everything. From May 22nd, which is the first post I made on Instagram, to today is 65 days or 9.28 weeks. I've made 17 posts, 35 highlighted stories. So not stories, but like stories that I've saved to my profile, right? So it's 1.8 posts per week and 3.7 highlighted stories per week, right? That's the whole time span, right? Now, I took the half-life of that because I know at some point in the second half, I decided to start posting more. I don't really remember when that was, but I just took the midpoint, which was June 24th, 32 days or 4.5 weeks ago, right? Since then, I've made 10 posts and 13 highlighted stories. So comparing to my average, I'm posting 22% above on posts and then 24% below on stories. And so in terms of consistency, I'm consistently posting on social media, and then I have increased the number of permanent posts I've made rather than highlighted stories. So that's a good indicator of consistency. And then looking at variability in the micro scale, I'm now introducing edited videos, which will eventually turn into ads, right?
Yep.
So it's very small variability on the micro scale currently, and much more consistency on the micro scale. But I like the Google 70-20-30 because a smaller percentage should be in variability. Most of it should be consistent.
Yeah. And that goes along with Hormozy's principle of like 70% of your time, do what works.
Mhm.
Right. And then like 20% of your time,
Yeah, that's a good
do
framework.
slightly,
Yeah, yeah.
same thing. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I would say as a last point for me, at least on this segment, I don't want to sound like trying new things is the wrong path to go down. That's not what I want to say. I think that this fundamentally goes back to how do you set your goals and what are your goals? If your goals are to do as many different things as possible, broad spectrum throughout your life, and just experience the entry level of a variety of different things, then jumping around might be the best way to achieve your goals. If your goal is to have something long term, a singular thing that grows in a certain niche that you then expand, then jumping around may not be the fastest way in order to achieve that goal, right? And so I think this fundamentally comes back to what are you trying to achieve and why, right? And to each their own, live life however you'd want it to be. But if you are trying to build a business specifically, I think it's incredibly challenging, if not impossible, to go through that process by constantly jumping around. Unless you just hit like a money shot on something that like happens to work, like you get into day trading and you accidentally throw a bunch of money into this one trade and then it shoots up and you make a ton. Like outside of that kind of scenario, I think it's would just swing possible, right?
Yeah. And I think that you can mitigate that risk by more clearly defining your goals.
Yeah.
Because if your goal is to, become a billionaire, there's a fucking lot of ways that you can do that, right? And maybe one of the methods is jumping all around and one of the methods is picking one thing and being consistent, right? But if you can specify your goal to, I want to become a billionaire in the private jet cleaning business, at that point, you've clarified, okay, variability outside of the private jet cleaning business is not ideal for my goals, right?
Yeah.
And if you find yourself drifting, then reevaluate your goals and,
Yeah.
if they're
If your
correct.
goal is to drift around, then drift around.
Yeah.
But if your goal is otherwise or your goal is business related, I would say that it's real tough to drift around and have anything meaningful happen in business.
Right.
I'd say. But that's what I had for segment 2.
Sweet. Let's do segment 3. So segment 3 is on the I'll start tomorrow fallacy. So far, none of what I have written has really followed the why start a business now motif, despite the title of the episode. Largely, I think this is because I don't care if other people start businesses. There are people who will lose their life savings trying to start a business, and there are people who will lose the opportunity cost of a lifelong fortune by never starting. I don't have even the slightest bit of expertise to be able to determine who is who. My answer to the prompt, why start a business now, is simple. Do it because you want to, or don't do it at all. As Elon Musk put it, if you need encouragement to start a company, don't do it. But there's a difference between those who want the output and aren't willing to input, and those who are willing to input but don't know how. This is what I affectionately call the I'll start tomorrow fallacy. I most commonly see the I'll start tomorrow fallacy with diet and exercise. It's so easy to promise yourself you'll change your life tomorrow because there's no real investment in it. There's no commitment. You never see people say, I'll pass today, I'll have a donut tomorrow. Maybe this is why I was thinking about donut shops earlier. I wrote this last night. This lends itself well to business, and it's a pattern I've noticed consistently. Sadly, there's even a second phase past this point that I see pretty often too. Those who take the first step, um, the ones that start researching their area of business or get to the gym for 15 minutes a day because it's better than nothing, ride on the success of that first victory and turn that into a pattern. Rather than grow, they just stay there. They continue reading, never doing. They continue short workouts, never really losing the weight. And it's commonly referred to as analysis paralysis. And I see it as an evolution of the I'll start tomorrow fallacy.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts?
I would definitely agree with that. I think that's something that's been a really handy development for me in the last, I would say, 6 months to a year. It's developed through, but um, kind of changing, and even so, over the course of the year and even 6 months, it's ramped up in how much I've tried to use it and approach it. But long story short, saying stuff like I choose not to versus I can't, or um I can't versus I can't versus I choose not to. And there was another example I had on the tip of my tongue, but you get the point. Like putting yourself at the frame of I am choosing not to do this rather than like other outside circumstances are not allowing me to do this, right? Not doing that latter option. And to go along with your gym example, like I used to, try to like juggle the gym with with the business stuff, and try to work that through. And what I realized is, after a while, I just continuously let the gym drop off every single time. And so I got to a point where I was like, you know what? At first I was like, I just don't have time to do the gym. I'm just going to work on business. And so that's the point I got to. And then after a while, I got, you know what? I consistently make time for things that matter to me. And so I rethought that, and I was like, you know what? It's not that I don't have time to go to the gym. It's that I choose not to because it's not a priority for me. And that really helped me mentally in the framework of like, oh no, it's not that I don't have time. It's that I choose to do other things with my time. And so, that kind of that the reason I bring this up is it shifted the framework. Once I did that, it shifted the framework from, oh, like I'll just worry about this later or I'll do it tomorrow, to no, I address the problem now and it's just not a concern for me right now. Right. And so instead of being like, oh man, like I don't have time for the gym, like eventually I'll have time, or like when I hit this, I'll do this. Like that's an extension of the tomorrow fallacy.
Right.
Right. Versus when I finally got to the point where I was like, no, like I just choose not to make time for this because I have other things that I want to do with my time, which is, just, maybe for me, it was like I can either do the gym every week or a few times a week and do the business stuff, but then I would have no time to spend with Sammy. Or I can do like kayak trip stuff and use the time I would be at the gym to work on business stuff. And so that's the balance that I kind of chose for, at least my given time frame right now. And so that's what I chose to do. But the I'll start tomorrow fallacy, I want to make a clear distinction is like I think it stems a lot from an outside influence of circumstance. And I think once you start to reframe it as like, no, this is like what I am choosing to do, it at least gives you a baseline to start from. Like, no, it's not that I don't have time today and I'll get to it tomorrow, or, oh, I don't want to do it this week, so I'll try next week. Or, it's not that's not the fundamental core of what's holding up people from starting businesses, I think. Sorry, that is the fundamental reason that people don't start businesses, is that they keep pushing it off to tomorrow and they keep blaming external circumstances, or they think they'll have more time one day, or blah, 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 blah. But in reality, it is a choice that you make. And I think if you reframe that into, I am actively choosing to not start my business because I have other things that are of greater priority to me right now, that forces the question on to you of, are the other things in your life actually a bigger priority? Like if once you ask that question, you make that statement, then it's like, okay, well, wait, like, are these actually a bigger priority? And that reframes that thought.
Right.
So that's something that helped me through, some similar processes that I wanted to share a little bit. But I would
Can I
s-
interject?
yeah, go for it.
We had a mutual friend reach out this week and ask if we wanted to go racing next weekend
Oh, true.
or
Yeah.
in the middle of next week, right?
Yeah.
And I was really quick to say no because money and time are too tight right now. And that's not no because I have something else going on, or no, not this week, but maybe next week, or it's not punting it. It's like, no, I now have a car payment. And so I'm having to buy less of the things that I like to buy,
Hmm.
and I still have to pay for real estate stuff, and that's only increasing because now I pay for CapCut, right? So I do not have the money to support going racing. Technically, I do. If I paid, like, if I sold some socks and stuff, I'm not willing to do that, right? Time is tight because I'm prioritizing the time that's outside of going to work and going to the gym to real estate, which is why we didn't go take sunset pictures at the pier, right? And the time, that small fraction of time that I am contributing outside of that, I'm either doing the podcast or going to meet Anna's cows tomorrow, today. That's today, right?
Today. Yeah.
So I'm unwilling to spend my time going and doing that thing. And I think you made a great point in which the phrasing it, even if it's just to yourself, is important to get on the same page with where you're really at. Because is it true that you're not going to your friend's party because you have something else going on, or you're tired or whatever? Grace has this problems with her friends all the time. Is she'll make plans with them, and then last second they'll say, "Oh, like, we're really tired from like doing something yesterday," or like, "Oh, like I have to go," like, I forget whatever it is. They always make up excuses to
Yeah.
cancel last second, right? And it's like, oh, the legitimacy of your last second excuses expired the fourth time in a row that it happened. Once
Right.
is an instance, two is a coincidence, three is a pattern, right? And four is incredulous, right? So don't make more excuses. Either be honest or stop doing it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like people frequently struggle with that because they don't phrase it that way. And one of my personal quotes I have is, "There's no such thing as no time. There's only no time management." And that's not to say that there aren't higher priorities out there, but you should be honest if there are higher priorities, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's I get invited to like these team bonding events with coworkers, or like, some they're gonna play soccer after work, or oh, we're going to the bar to drink or stuff like that. Like, those invites go around all the time, and I've very consistently said no. Um, and one of my coworkers asked me, it was like, oh, like, do you just um, do you can you not go, or can you not make it? And I'm like, no, I just don't want to.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have other things on my plate. I have other stuff that I'm doing, and I don't wanna go hang out for 2 hours and play soccer.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
had
want to.
my boss called me and the only other guy in his 20s on our team to his desk last week, and he was like, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about like organizing a systems engineering, like probably like 40, 50 people hangout, like a group social after work next week. I'm trying to figure out where to do it. Where do you think we should do it?" And so my coworker's like, "Oh, well, there's like this bar or this restaurant or whatever. Are you looking for something on the beach?" And he was like, "I don't know." He was like, "Mason, what do you think?" And I was like, "I've never been to one of these." And he laughed and he was like, "You've never been and you're not going to?" And I was like, "Probably not." He was like, "Oh, really? You wouldn't come?" And I was like, "No, I'm just gonna do real estate." And he was like, "Okay, that's cool." And I feel like my coworkers usually, I come into work tired and they're like, "Oh, what'd you do yesterday? Work?" And I'm like, "Yep." And I feel like most of them don't really, it doesn't register to them because a lot of my coworkers are the I get home and sit in the recliner type of people, right?
Yeah.
But one of them, who I think is a little bit more active and understands me a little bit better, I was putting out open house signs in Satellite Beach. I told you I did a bunch of them on South Pat, right?
Right.
So I walked like a quarter mile from the car putting signs out. And while I was putting signs out, there was like standstill traffic and someone rolled their window down. It was one of my coworkers. And he was like, "Hey, Mason." And I was like, "What are you doing out here?" He was like, "Oh, I live out here." And I was like, "Oh, awesome." He's like, "What are you doing out here?" And I was like, "I put all those signs up. You should go to our open house, whatever." And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay, got it." And he was like, "Yeah, I gotta like, go do something else." No worries. But it was interesting to see like how the other half lives. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Um, but it's funny that you mentioned the work get together thing because I just had that conversation with my boss last week.
Yeah, yeah, and it's just so, like, I if I'm choosing between going to hang out and play soccer with some coworkers on a day where I've actively chosen that morning to work on my business, I will be working on my business.
Right.
If I actively choose to, in advance, dedicate 4 hours to go see bioluminescence at kayaking, guess what? I'm not working on business during those 4 hours
Yeah.
because I actively made a choice to go kayaking, and I put my phone in my car, I put everything away, and I enjoyed the friggin' light in the water with my paddle, because that's what I chose to do, and that's what I wanted to do, and it's like, um, I think a lot. a lot of people get caught up in, trying to, reason through why life circumstances don't allow them to do blah blah blah. And it's like at the end of the day, it's like no, you make a choice to do not that, right? And
Yeah.
and maybe your choice is really, really hard, but you still have to make a choice, right? It's not that life forces you to, you know. And I don't really think they're even in the worst circumstances, you still always have a choice,
Right.
right? Like I could, let's say, worst circumstance, knock on wood, but if my garage were to catch on fire, I have a choice whether to stand in that fire and burn alive and try to get my tools out, or I have the choice to leave.
You have free will.
And so in those circumstances, it's still important to have. I think it's really valuable to have the perspective of you have the choice to make. And I think anytime I've strayed away from that has left me feeling helpless and hopeless, and I don't know what to do, and then that frustrates me.
Yeah.
Uh,
I was talking to Tyler yesterday, because we were talking about going to the gym. Tyler was like, "You should get tattoos," and I was like, "No." And then Hector was like, "Oh, don't ruin that body," and I was like, "That body? What are you talking about?" He was like, "Dude, you're jacked," and I was like, "No, I'm not." And then I was like, "Actually," so earlier this week when we were doing showings, I'll just like hit a flex in reflective surfaces every once in a while. But I flexed at this showing, and I was like, "Dude," because I got sick in like February, and I've been really shitty about getting into the gym since then. I've only gone like 2 or 3 times a week. Um, but earlier this week, I hit this pose in the gym, and I was like, "Oh, I've been in the gym every day since then." Right? All I needed was like that little thing to remind me that this is actually important to me.
mm,
And I have gone consistently since then. And I was talking to Tyler, and Tyler was like, "I used to be like you," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "Yeah, I was on the powerlifting team in my high school," and I was like, "You're 28. High school was half your life ago. What are you talking about?" And he was like, "Yeah, well, I like to make my schedule really busy so that I can rationalize not going to the gym to myself." And I was like, "That's not an excuse, right? Like being busy isn't an excuse. It just means that it's not a priority to you." He was like, "It's important to me." And I was like, "No, it's not. If it was important, you'd be doing it. And if not, then, reconsider how you structure your days, right?"
yeah, yeah. It's not important to me, and that's why I don't go.
Sure.
And,
Yeah.
I don't know what 5 years from now will look like for me. Maybe 5 years from now, the most important thing in my life will be, sitting on an island in the Bahamas and uh, climbing palm trees.
Yeah. But you do
Fuck if I know,
you
right?
do
But
yourself a disservice if you say that something is a priority and then you don't do it because your actions aren't showing how you feel. And,
right,
and that's living inauthentically, right? Not maliciously, but inauthentically, right?
yeah,
Don't say something's important to you if you don't do it. Or if you do say something's important to you and it genuinely is and you're just not doing it, then consider why.
right, exactly. And so I think that framework is something I wanted to kind of touch on with you a little bit because I think it's something I see consistently outside of like our group,
Yeah.
being like you and I. um, but it's something that I wanted to touch on a little bit.
Yeah.
But I want to hear your side of it too. I have like a little end thing, but
I've got one bullet point here for this, and it's a while I was thinking about this, I thought about the irony of the phrase itself because I don't think I've heard other I don't know if I came up with the "I'll start tomorrow" fallacy or not, but I was trying to think about, is the word fallacy the right word for this, right? Because fallacy is meant to be something that contradicts itself in nature,
mm,
right? And I was like, does this really contradict itself? Because it's just kind of a statement. And then I really thought about it, and I was like, notice "I'll start tomorrow" isn't "I'll start tomorrow, July 28th." It's just tomorrow,
yeah,
and it always will be.
yeah,
It'll always be tomorrow. It'll always be the next day. And that's the fallacy part of it, right? I almost said phallic. That's not the case. That's the fallacy part, is that it's always one day away. It's never today.
exactly, exactly. And so that kind of ties into the last bullet point I have, which is a kind of operationalized version of um fighting against the tomorrow fallacy, the all start tomorrow fallacy. And I wrote, start today, build habits around your goals, write them down, cut out distractions, and make so much volume that it would be unreasonable for you to not succeed.
No.
So that's kind of a Hermosi, a Sanders spin on a Hermosi principle. But that's the last bullet point I had for this.
Works well with the dial-in, if you're ready.
Yeah.
The dial-in today is a spin on a Hermosi quote. It's but Alex, I plan on starting tomorrow. Okay, you're right. And you'll never achieve the success you want, and it's not your fault. That feel better? Right, I didn't think so.
Exactly.
That's it.
Very cool. Well, thank you for tuning in this week. Appreciate you listeners, and we will see you next time.
Yeah, I guess this is going out. We built a 1 week gap again, right?
Yeah.
So this Tuesday, the Muscle Car Museum one posts, and then the next Tuesday, this one posts.
Yep.
Cool.
So
Sounds good.
yeah. See you guys soon and be well.